As the leader of the Booner pack, I lead from the front.
All right, boys. Lock in.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
I'm fired up. I'm fired the up, boys.
It's pumping right now. It's got my juices pumping, boys.
Welcome, everyone, to Crunch Time Sports with Jeff, Booner, Lukas, and Gentry. It is Wednesday, October 2nd, and hey, listen, boys, I'll just start. Tigers won. Tigers won, and they advance to the ALDS. I'm not even going to waste any time here. I was tuning in today, doing some stuff at home here, and the game was electric. I thought AJ was playing some games. They were throwing in Jackson Jobe a little bit, a 2-run score, but they hung in there. Honestly, and this is what we talked about, fellas, when we brought up the Tigers, when they actually clinched and made the playoffs. The pressure is on the opponent. The Astros had the record, and they had their consecutive times making the playoffs, and the Tigers come in. Oh, the Tigers, they're playing well, hottest team in baseball. The pressure's on the Astros.
Yes, sir.
Just punched them right in the mouth on the road, Boone. What a way. Hey, and you saw AJ Hinch in the locker room. Who let the Tigers get hot, Boone? Who let them get hot?
Guys, it's something special what's going on in Detroit, fellas, like with the Detroit Tigers. There is going to be a home playoff game at Comerica Park for the first time since 2014. Like next Wednesday, everyone right now, like Comerica Park's going to be packed. We obviously have the show, so I won't be there. I've told myself the next time the Tigers were in the playoffs, I was going to be at Comerica. I want to be – the show's the number one thing, but like – we're gonna, we probably, if it's a night game, we'll probably do a watch party for it or something, because like this is unbelievable. Like another Detroit team outside of the Lions are making a postseason run, and AJ Hinch, by the way, manager of the year. This man has done just absolute miracles with this Tigers team. At one point, guys, like they had a 0.2% chance of making the playoffs, and they just went to they just won a wild card series, and they swept Houston Astros. Like AJ Hinch is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I was nervous today. I was watching it, and when they went down 2-1, it's just one of those things as a fan. And I'm sure a lot of people kind of get this is when you're a fan of a team, you think like worst case scenario all the time. Like you're on the edge of your seat. You're so nervous. Everything's going through your head. Different scenarios. What's going to happen? And it goes 2-1, and all I could think about is, oh, like, please don't let it get to an elimination game tomorrow. Like, we just don't need that. Like, I can't handle that. I don't want these guys to have to handle that. And then literally the next inning, I put a live bet on the Tigers, like plus 350 as soon as that happened. And then they just go on an absolute tear, go up 5-2. It was unbelievable. Like the whole kind of the turn of everything today, it felt magical. It felt, I don't want to be, felt magical a little bit.
Yeah.
That was a magical moment today. And like, it feels like they're the hottest team in baseball, which statistically they are. Over the last 50 games, they can beat anyone. And now they're going to play the Cleveland Guardians. I don't know what their record has been against the Cleveland Guardians, but it is something that and this is the youngest team in baseball. First of all, how much they get paid, their payroll is like 20 something million, or like I think it was like 29 million, the wild card. There's like players on the Astros who make that on their own. It's one of the most insane stories I think in almost baseball history. Like no one would have ever seen this happening. So hey, I love a good miracle, fellas. And this team, these young guys getting this experience, Tigers might be good for a long time going forward too. Honestly,
looks like it.
Yeah,
looks like it.
18.8 million was the wild card roster thing. Shout out IT Hips.
Well, even and by the way, I see people's comments, and I looked it up quickly, but appreciate the people in the chat for confirming it. 6-7 against the Guardians this season. So I mean, the Tigers now, you're playing. I mean, they were already playing with house money. Now you're just going out there. You're playing with house money for a team that had a 0.2%, 2% chance of making the playoffs to now beating the Astros and advancing and doing it in electric fashion. Like they won the Scooble game, and you're up 1-0. Jackson Jobe gets out there, 2-run score. You're down 2-1 late. It's like the top of the 8th, I believe it was. And then Ibanez just hits gets what? They score on all three. They score.
Any Ibanez hit was unbelievable, dude. That was just and it cleared the bases.
Oh yeah. It was beautiful. I'm sitting there screaming and looking at my computer, freaking out. And I can't imagine just the the reaction of Detroit sports fans. Now you have the Lions, who just won a playoff game for the first time in how many years? Basically a decade. Or excuse me, the last time they made the playoffs, but they have won a playoff game since like the 90s. And then you have the Tigers making the playoffs for the first time in about, I think, 11 years. And now advancing, winning a series for the first time in 11 years. So what a time to be a Detroit sports fan, you know? Like, this is awesome. And now it puts more pressure on these other franchises, because now it's like, hey, guys, we all stink. You know, it's like, hey, two teams are playoff teams. The Red Wings, like, hey, we're gearing up to go to the playoffs. And then there's, the Pistons.
You did say, it was like plural. You did say franchises. It's really just franchise with the Detroit Pistons, putting the pressure on them, because the Wings are going to be in the playoffs this year and hopefully make a run. The Tigers are already making a run. Like, the Tigers run's already like, so I saw someone in the chat say like this was what the Lions run in 2022. If they would have won to beat the Packers and the Seahawks lost and they would have made the playoffs, this is like what's happening. This was what should have happened.
Right.
2022. And like, that's what's happening with the Tigers right now. I wonder, I would love to know who's going to the game on Wednesday. Send us videos, all of that. And I did see that comment you put up. What were they? 6 and 7? What was it? 6 and 7 versus
6 and 7 against the Guardians this season.
And whoever it was that put the comment said 10 of those games were early on in the season. So the Guardians really, like, they've only played the Tigers a couple times down the stretch towards the end when the Tigers really were hot. So anything can happen. Honestly, I do think that the Tigers can beat any team right now. They can win any series. As the series gets longer, maybe you start getting a little, but the way AJ Hinch is kind of managing these games and putting the guys in the right positions, pinch hitters, you're just like, the way he's doing everything, it's unbelievable. He's doing such a good job.
For a second, I got a little worried when Jackson Joe went in there. I'm not gonna lie to you. It was gutsy. That was ballsy. And after the I'm like, oh no, 2 runs are scored. I'm like, oh God, you could tell Joe's a little, of course the dude's going to be nervous. And then they ended up saving it, and it didn't matter anyway. But that was AJ Hinch. That was, hey. And then you had Justin Verlander over there. They kept popping the camera to him and just his face as soon as the Lions won and started celebrating. It was amazing. Like, it was, honestly, it couldn't have happened it happened perfectly. How everything kind of transpired. It was like, Verlander watching the Tigers, the way they played. Like, it was, honestly, you couldn't have wrote a story better than that. Like, that was awesome. And playoff baseball, man, I got to say, it's electric.
I'll say this. It's that much better when the Tigers are in it, though. Like, it's electric, but when your team's playing in it, it is the absolute best. It is crazy, too, when you think about it. And I was, like, on Twitter, and I guess not as much as this, like, today, but, like, throughout the last week, just so many people, like, trying to take victory laps, being like, oh, I said the Tigers were going to do that 4 months ago. I don't think anyone said that. If you did, like, congratulations, you went on the biggest limb of your life. Like, no one could have called what was happening here. And it's like, the fact that it's happening, we're able to all celebrate together. And like, as a city, we're all able to be like, just look each other in the eyes and be like, this is one of the most magical runs in baseball history. Like, no one expected it. If you would have told me at the beginning of the season that this was going to happen, I would have probably laughed at you of the way the Tigers were and the season started off. You'd be like, yeah, funny, dude. Like,
well, and you got to think, like, you think Jared Goff, that you beat the Rams, Jared Goff facing his old team, and then of course AJ Hinch, you're facing the Astros. Like, that's why these the Lions, Tigers, the playoff success, even though the Lions made it all the way to the NFC Championship game, but just that initial success, like, kind of breaking the, it's been a while. Like, it just couldn't have happened in a better way. Like, the story, the AJ Hinch and the Houston Astros, and then you have Jared Goff and the LA Rams. And yeah, to your point about calling the Tigers make the playoffs, if you called them with a 0.2% chance, then yeah, you go to the gas station and get some, buy a lotto ticket.
There's like those people though that were like, you're not allowed to cheer for them now because you weren't cheering for them when they had a 0.2%.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
It's like, bro, ridiculous. What are we doing here? Like, that's crazy. I do think they can make the World Series. Like, I legit feel like they can make a run to the World Series. I don't think that's like, I don't care how young your team is.
The way they're playing well. I mean, the hottest team in baseball, it's not a crazy thing to say. They're hot. It's not. I mean, if they can, it's hard. It's going to be, and we're going to have Raj on. I'll have Raj on tomorrow because I want to pick his brain on this because, like, the sustainability of how well they're playing, like, I'm curious, but to say, like, oh, the hottest team in baseball can go on a run, I don't think that's crazy. I don't. No. Given how they've been playing. And it's not just, the last 10 games they've been on fire. No, the last 50 games. Now we're 52 games. I mean, the record, I guess, I know the record over the last 50 games before they won this series, and that was 34-16. So now they're 36-16. I mean, best record in the MLB. So I don't think you're crazy for that. Tyler says, bro, you can't cheer for them unless you're like and subscribe to Crunch Time Sports.
I agree.
Shout out.
Yeah,
the gritty Tigers, man. It's unbelievable what's happening.
Yep, I do. I echo that statement. I do. You know what? I if you guys are going to the game, have a blast. I mean, we'll be obviously
send us videos.
Yes, please. We'd love to play a lot of that content on our show. So please do it. I want to transition here because we do have a very special guest on, and I'm excited to have him on because if you have not seen this man, just scroll. You've seen this man. If you're on social media and you see the Get Back Coach, you know who this man is. And I saw him talking to Easy. He's a good friend of ours. And he did a great job. So we're excited to pick his brain. Please welcome to the show now the current VP of Player Performance for the Philadelphia Eagles and a man who has been around in the NFL, and he's a hell of a motivational speaker as well. Please welcome Mr. Ted Rath. Ted, how you doing?
What's up, guys? Appreciate the time. Thanks for having me on. Excited to talk some Lions.
Yeah, you know what? And Ted, I got to say, and I'll speak for the fellas here, appreciate you joining, taking the time out. I'd love to ask you, now the Monday night game just happened. Jared Goff, he's playing well. I mean, and you see these graphics coming out of the last 20 games, 25 games, comparing him to top quarterbacks in the NFL. Obviously, you were a part of the Los Angeles Rams. You got to see him at a different time when he now got traded and came to Detroit. What has been your just opinion watching him and the success he's had in Detroit, delivering a playoff win for the city? And given what he was when you were with LA, what kind of growth have you seen and what have you thought in his development now in Detroit with the Detroit Lions?
Yeah, great question. The first thing I think about with Jared, and this is something that hit me in 2017 when me and Sean McVay took on that responsibility of trying to flip the Rams. We got in there and we're like, hey, what do you think about Jared? He's California cool in all the good ways. And I say that as a very positive thing because being from California, he grew up, he's an obviously awesome athlete, but Jared is so cool, calm, collected. He has all those right things that you look at from a quarterback, the intangibles. If he throws an interception, if the play is a 99-yard touchdown, he's still going to come back to the sideline and be unfazed. He's going to look forward to the next play. He's going to look forward to the next opportunity. And when you talk about that grit and that determination, things that really define Dan Campbell's culture and Brad Holmes' culture within the Detroit Lions organization, he really solidifies all those things. So literally when that trade happened, and obviously I was there with Stafford, I thought that was going to be very positive and good for Sean and in his offensive scheme in LA. But on the counter side, I was like, you know what? I think Jared's going to be able to do some good things here in Detroit. And I think we're starting to see that. You see that personified, but you also see Ben Johnson's creativity and how he calls games, but also Dan Campbell's culture and Brad Holmes, the people that he's brought into that building. I know a lot of those people still there and a lot of people from other teams that I've worked with. I'm excited for those guys. I'm excited for Jared. And I think you're just seeing come to fruition hard work from him, from Ben, from Coach Campbell, from all the people involved. They've done a phenomenal job of setting it up for success.
And Ted, I do want to pick your brain a little bit with the Ben Johnson. I know you were with him for a little stint there in Miami. Just kind of when you were with Ben Johnson, going or being around him, what you kind of took from him and kind of seeing his path in the NFL, because it is an unbelievable path to being one of the best OCs in the game and, going to be a head coach, probably sometime soon in the next year or so. What are your thoughts on that? And then as well as just like what he's doing in Detroit, because what he's built in Detroit with Dan has been unbelievable. What are your thoughts on all of that and kind of his future as well?
Yeah, another good question. And I think that the first thing you address is the fact that he's actually turned down multiple head coaching opportunities. And I say that once again as a positive because Ben is a very thoughtful person. He's a very intellectual individual. He's highly intelligent just by how you see how he schemes up defenses in the NFL because the defensive coordinators are smart individuals too. So Ben does a phenomenal job in that. And I think what you're seeing is him maturing. And I knew Ben at a young age when he was still coming to the league. We were both relatively young-ish in our careers. And Ben did a phenomenal job where you look at the wide receiver room, you look at some of the at that point, we had veterans. We had a good mix of veterans and younger players, and how Ben could get through to all of them and how Ben could have an impact on all the players on our roster, and then how he knew the defensive players. You start to see some intangibles with guys like that, with guys like, I'm not going to compare him to Sean McVay or the Kyle Shanahans, but the people that I've seen and been around in this league, that have transitioned into becoming really good leaders and really good head coaches. And the key word there is leaders. Ben has that. And Ben needs certain things around him, but Ben understands how to put together a staff. So you look at the offensive staff and you look the Hank Fraley's, you look at the OC, how they build the offensive line coach, how they build the running back coach, how they build these connections throughout the rest of the staff. Ben is understanding that, and he's maturing as he's gone. And I think you see it's going to continue to lead to better production every year. So Ben, can't say enough good things about him, but from a leadership perspective, he's just a really good guy who cares, who wants to do the right thing. And I think you see that because the players buy into that. They buy into authenticity.
Love that.
Yeah. Love that, Ted, like Booner just said. And one question I do have, you've been around the league for a while. You've been involved in a couple of organizations, coached a lot of players, and you've also watched a lot of teams. When you look at what you talked about Brad Holmes and what he's been able to build, when you look at this Detroit Lions roster and how they're built, do you think this is a team that's going to have a window? In Detroit, at least, we look at them as Super Bowl contenders. Do you think that they're going to have a window that's going to be continuous with how this roster is built?
Well, I think there's no question about it that they're in a window right now. I think everyone would admit that, which is really cool because being from around the city, I grew up about an hour away from Detroit. I'm just happy for the city of Detroit. It's so cool. I do think there's going to be a continuous window. And I think the one thing that's unique there, you look at this, there's continuity. You look at Brad, you look at Dan Campbell, and you look at the fact that they've been patient. They had down years, but they knew this was going to be a process. It was very similar when I came. My first year in Detroit was 2009. It was the year after they went 0-8 or 0-16 in 2008. And Jim Schwartz came. We were in the playoffs in 3 years, and they were patient. They were patient through that process. I think you're seeing that now with ownership from Sheila, from everyone top down. But I think you're seeing the confidence. You're seeing Brad Holmes come in there and say, here's my plan. Here's my vision. And he's hired great people. He's hired the Ray Agnews, who's the assistant GM, phenomenal people. But you see Dan Campbell come in, and they are in complete alignment. You see this often within the NFL to where there's a disconnect, whether it's front office versus coaching staff or things like that. You don't see a disconnect within the Detroit Lions facility. And that organization, those guys are on the same page, everyone top to bottom. The men and the women that are in that building are operating on the same page within alignment. So I think the foreseeable future, they have the talent. You have to continue to rebuild, and you have to look 5 to 10 years down the line, but you also have to build to win now. I think they're doing that because knowing Brad, how I know him, he's thinking about full circle. What do we have to do to win now? But also, what do we have to do to build this so it's sustainable 5 to 10 years down the line? They're doing that.
Yeah, and Ted, you kind of spoke on it already. You being a part of the Detroit Lions, and at least for fans, like knowing what the Detroit Lions were, and it was a place where coaches came to, with, for lack of a better term, die essentially, and they never would get these opportunities again. And now you have Dan Campbell, who's has this staff. Guys are getting head coaching opportunities. Dan's one of the best coaches in the NFL, and you credited ownership, which I do agree with. Can you compare your time in Detroit, the culture, and kind of the narrative around the Lions to what it is now, and really the discrepancy there, and how far they've come as an organization? Give more people more insight on that.
Yeah, sure. And I love the time looking back because, number one, a lot of things that I've learned throughout my life, not just in football, but it's translated to business, to life, leadership and lessons that you learn through that. Number one, I think Jim Schwartz was the perfect hire back in 2009 because Coach Schwartz, I can't say enough good things about him. I'm not shocked that he hasn't gotten another head coaching job because he's very honest and he's brutally honest at some points. But that guy is one of the best coaches in the NFL. And I think he was perfect for the city of Detroit at the time. So when you look at what they needed and what we needed at the time, we had tremendous talent. We drafted Matthew Stafford. We had Calvin Johnson. The next year we drafted Ndamukong Suh. We got Jabba Best, brought in Nate Burleson, Kyle Vanabosh. I can go on and on. We had tremendous talent, and we built it in a way that was sustainable for that short term because we brought in a good mixture of veterans, and then we started hitting in the draft. And I think Martin Mayhew was on the same page. Coach Schwartz, really good talent evaluator. So I think there was a really cool aspect there to where they were on the same page because we were building a system. And the unique thing about Coach Schwartz, he had an identity. He had a clearly defined identity and role for literally every player on the roster. A lot of people don't talk about this, but I'm talking legitimately. We have 90 players on a roster until you make final cuts. He had an identity, and it was literally physically written and mapped out. What is our long snapper? What are his intangibles? And then what's our backup place kicker in training camp? Is he just a leg to alleviate Jason Hansen's overuse? Okay, well, that's what he is. We had a clear definition. And I think as we transition through that, how you go to what it is now, I just think you're 10, 15 years into the NFL now. Brad Holmes has that long-term visibility. When you're coming in and taking over an 0-16 team, it's hard to say, hey, in 10 years, we're going to be Super Bowl contenders, because in the back of your mind, there's a lot of people, even within the organization. I'm not saying there's people there now like that, but there's a lot of people thinking there's no way this is an uphill battle. How are we going to win this? And you get a little bit of headbutting and you get a little bit of a knockback from that. I think right now what you have a really good system because you have the right people, and you have the right people in alignment, and they're working together for the right reasons. Win now, but also let's build this so it doesn't crumble apart in 2 to 3 years. Let's make this sustainable.
Yeah, Ted, I want to kind of just ask you a question about the kind of the Detroit Lions this season when it comes to, because you are in Philadelphia with that offensive line the last few years. And then you look at the Detroit Lions offensive line, probably 2 of the best in the entire NFL. So you've seen both. I just want to kind of pick your brain. A lot of people in our show that watch our show, and even you see Lions fans, I'm sure you've seen it, always mention this saying, well, Jared Goff needs, the pieces around him. And for me, and I say it a lot, I think most quarterbacks do anyways. What do you think the ceiling is for this team? And, they built from that inside out, and then they gave Jared Goff this opportunity, and he has been one of the best quarterbacks in the entire NFL. And the first couple of weeks, there was a little struggle, and they're finally starting to, you saw Monday Night Football just absolutely took off. What do you think the ceiling is for this Detroit Lions offense in general, with Ben Johnson, the weapons, Jared Goff, and especially this offensive line that they have up front?
Yeah, I love that point, because Jared, just like anyone, every quarterback needs help. Like no one's doing it. No one in the world is doing it on their own. This is a very complex game, especially at the NFL level. But what I would say about Jared, he took us in 2018 to the Super Bowl. And did we have pieces? Of course, we had talent. But the guy's been there. He's done this. He's done this on a big stage. He's done it on a tremendous atmosphere. What's the end goal? I think the Detroit Lions are a Super Bowl contender. I really do. I don't know if they're going to make it to the Super Bowl, but I think if all things work together, they got to get over this injury bug. They got to figure that out. They need their best players available. That's a huge component to this. So luck, yeah, part of it, preparing your team correctly and making sure they're ready to go and getting your key guys back on field. That's a big part. If they do that, yes, I think the Super Bowl is a realistic window this year and probably for the foreseeable future, because they have the talent and they have the coaching staff. They have everything else that you need right now.
Yeah, Ted, and one more thing that I have for you, and it's kind of more outside of the Detroit Lions, but something I'm just definitely interested in, want to pick your brain about. You've coached a lot of players. Who do you think is just if you had to pick one, the most dominant player, whether it was inside the locker room, outside on the field, it even could be a coach, a guy that just commanded attention and was just an animal. And what do you think made him so good?
That's a tough one, because it's like picking who's your favorite kid. I'll take the cop out. I'll name a few. Number 1, Calvin Johnson is, in my opinion, the best ever at his position. Number 2, Aaron Donald, best ever in my opinion at his position. And then I'll throw a coach out there because you brought it up, Sean McVay. I think from a leadership perspective. So those 3 individuals, just characteristically, how they approach life, how they attack the locker room, the buy-in that they get, the trust that they enable throughout the locker room, the culture that they allow to be built, because you have literally one of the most dominant people in their position ever in the history of the game, but they're also one of the best people, best teammates, best locker room guys. Those are the components you look for, and literally all those guys are some of the best that I've ever been around, and they're some of the best in the game. I could go on and on, but those 3 are probably the top 3 that stick out from my career.
Ted, I was saying, Ted, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask you this. I just want to, it maybe, you've worked with a lot of coaches. Like, top 5 head coaches in the NFL right now. Are you able to answer that? Because we talked about this on the show before the season, and I think all of us had Andy Reid, Sean McVay, and then at some point, I think I might have been the only one that had Dan at like 4 or 5. Who do you have in the top 5 right now in the NFL as head coaches?
Yeah, I would agree. I think Sean and Andy are kind of the staples when you look at them. I do think there's other guys. You can argue for so many. If you go top 50, you're going to argue for guys like John Harbaugh. You're going to argue for the Sean Paytons of the world. So I think I would start with Sean and Andy. I think Kyle Shanahan has to be in that conversation because same thing. They have done more with the worst injured team in several years. It's every season they're literally losing their best players, and Kyle just finds a way to dial it up. Like, that guy is amazing and incredible as a play caller. So I think those are some of the ones. I think Dan Campbell's probably in that conversation. I really do, from the turnaround of what he's been able to do and develop from a cultural standpoint. And once again, it's funny. I was on our head coach hiring committee in 2021 in Philadelphia. So I literally got to sit in. We flew to our owner's house, and it was right after COVID was ending. I got to help interview literally all the head coaching candidates for that cycle. And we ended up going through the process, and we hired Nick Sirianni. But I got to ask cultural questions. How are you going to handle fines? How are you going to handle accountability? How are you going to build the culture of this team? And it's crazy. Some coaches don't think about that. And then the top tier people, the top tier coaches who ended up, becoming great head coaches and Hall of Fame caliber coaches, that's all they think about, because it doesn't matter if you're in high school, collegiate, professional football. If you don't have a great positive culture within your locker room and players that trust each other and the staff, you're going to run into problems. And I think Dan Campbell is a perfect example of what you can accomplish with belief, with trust, and with building a culture, because ultimately you got to trust the guy next to you. You have to, whether he's a Pro Bowler or whether he's the guy that the 53rd man on the roster, you got to trust him and believe that he's going to do his job. And I think Dan Campbell has done that in an incredible way.
Yeah, great stuff, Ted. We appreciate you so much. I mean, you're over in Philly. I mean, you're obviously you've been an assistant strength and conditioning coach. You got Jalen Hurts and Saquon. I mean, two guys that are battling who could squat more. So you got your hands full, my man. And again, you tell the people there's people that are watching here locally. What are you up to? I see a lot of the things you're doing, coaching on and off the field. Can you tell people more about what you're doing on the side away from football?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle of a transition phase to where I just finished my first personal development book. It's something I'm passionate about, once again, from the leadership, cultural, and character building type of situations. So that's going to be coming out in the next couple of months. Keep your eyes out on that. You can follow me on all socials at Ted Rath or at Ted Rath Strength Coach. So we're trying to get a little bit more active on some of the socials. I have a YouTube channel, same thing, at Ted Rath Strength Coach, putting out some fitness stuff, also some NFL tips and some of those things behind the scenes, working into some youth sports stuff. So all over the place right now, but really, really excited to kind of talk about that leadership, consulting with some businesses, different sports teams around that line. But yeah, search me, social media, always happy to interact with anyone that reaches out.
There you go. Hey, he responded pretty quickly. All right, Ted, I got a lot of respect for guys that can do that, and appreciate you as always taking the time. You can follow him at Ted_Rath on pretty much all social media, and search him up on YouTube as well. Ted, we appreciate you, man. Hopefully we get to talk to you in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Appreciate the time.
Appreciate it,
of course. There you go. Mr. Ted Rath taking the time to join the fellas, talking about his experience. I mean, Ben Johnson, Jared Goff. I mean, that's a guy you want to talk to.
Awesome.
I mean, he has a different perspective, fellas. It was great.
I love hearing like perspectives of, especially like even, the Detroit Lions years ago with Jim Schwartz, and even in LA with Sean McVay, and like to hear Jared Goff was in LA. He was there with Jared Goff. So he's able to kind of talk about the Super Bowl run with Jared Goff. And I hopefully the people in the chat who don't like Jared Goff were able to hear that a little bit and understand that, hey, Jared is an absolute dude. And everyone in the building in LA thought that, obviously, until they traded him. But like he's a dude. And even now, that, and people. So I think it's interesting for them to see. I do like how he said Dan Campbell is in that conversation with those top head coaches.
Yeah. Hey, Ted, I almost asked Ted, what's going on with them Eagles, Ted? I didn't want sensitive.
Yeah, you PR.
I didn't want him get him in between a rock and a hard place. Be like, what's going on with them Eagles, man? Oh yeah, but all right. Well, we got a lot more to get to. 8:45. John Maakaron will be joining, so we got about 15
packed
minutes.
Show, man.
Yeah, and I did want to transition here, fellas, because if you've been on social media, you've seen across your timeline, Davante Adams. He wants out. And Dan Graziano, ESPN NFL insider, you know what he said? The Lions could be in play because they have cap space. Where are you guys at with that narrative?
Where are we?
And the fact that the Lions would even entertain trading for a wide receiver?
What are we? I mean, I think just because Dan Graziano puts it out there, I think that was more so maybe one of those situations where it's like, let me look at the top cap space, teams that have the open cap space, and let's see who he fits in with. That's in my opinion. I'm surprised. I'm going to be completely honest. I'm shocked at the amount of people online who are actually like Davante Adams to the Detroit Lions. I thought that we have like got to a place to where it's like we've had these discussions in Detroit the last 2 or 3 years. When every player's available, we don't have to be like, yep, Detroit, like because you've built up a good enough team. Where does Davante? I guess you could say a guy like Davante Adams can fit on any roster because he's Davante Adams. But realistically, like with Amon-Ra and Sam and J-Mo and Gibbs and D-Mont and Tim Patrick now, I just try and sit back and be like, is that a fit that where it's like you're going to have to try and force Davante the ball or you can naturally do it? I don't know. I personally would rather take a step back and say, hey, Brad, if you're going to make any trade in the next couple weeks or months, maybe we should get this defense back and get this defense locked in. Like Marcus Davenport just went out. You just lost Derek Barnes, who's another edge rusher for you in that Sam spot. Maybe we go get an edge rusher instead of top tier wide receiver you're only going to have for 1 year. So I'm more so on the side to where, hey, go get me. Don't know if it'll happen. Get me Max Crosby. If the Raiders, Jeff, I texted you first thing today when all of this started coming out. Hey, if this team's breaking up right now, the Raiders are breaking up, and Max Crosby is on the table, let me get him over Davante Adams. If Trey Hendrickson's on the table, let me get him. But I'm not going to sit here and be like, just because Davante Adams available, I'm not going to be one of those guys that's like, yeah, put him Honolulu Blue, get him here. Like, I know. Just give me Max Crosby and I'm good. Give me a defensive edge.
Exactly, bro. This is not Madden 25. This is not Madden 26. Whatever Madden they are on, this is not it. And the Detroit Lions, yeah, I mean, any team, Booner, like you said, could use Davante Adams. He's going to be a Hall of Famer one day. He's a guy that's just a touchdown machine, one of the best route runners ever stepped foot on the field. But the Detroit Lions simply don't need him. In fact, I think he would hurt the Detroit Lions because looking at this offense right now, they just started clicking this week. And why is it? Because they had to figure out the game flow, how to distribute the ball with Jared Goff, get all these targets, the ball when they need, and keep them in rhythm. You add Davante Adams in there. If you don't give him at least 6-7 targets a game, he will let you know that there's an issue with that. You have seen that in Las Vegas the last couple of years. I think he would be good in Detroit, but it's simply one of those things that's on paper, like the X's and O's, that looks great. In reality, that's something that's going to stall out here. So love Davante Adams as a player, but Detroit simply does not need him.
Do we really think, though, like that would be like, yeah, I think it would be, yes, he's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. Like, where does he fit into the offense?
No,
genuinely.
My problem is with Dan Graziano. All right. And actually, I think he's Italian. So, hey, respect to you, Graziano. Hey, much love to you. And you do a great job. And it's not just him. It's this national thing with insiders. And they always throw it's like, oh, this player wants a trade, or this player asks out, or this team is going to trade this player. Well, let's look at teams that have cap space. You have to look at teams that have cap space. And you have to also look at teams that need a wide receiver. Like that is you can't just say, oh, the Lions, they have cap space. They'll probably trade for him. Dan, just do a little research. My man, just search Detroit Lions depth chart and just look at the receiving core. It doesn't make a lick of sense. You know what does make sense? Hey, going and taking an edge somewhere from another team that is losing and they want to trade their edge away. That makes sense. Like if you know Lions football, you know they need an edge because James Houston there has not been a snap so far in the regular season. There's probably one or two where he hasn't gotten a penalty. So that's the concern one. And that's supposed to be your book, your at least one of your best pass rushers, not your bookend, but someone that like, hey, if you need to get after the quarterback, it's James Houston. Guy just looks MIA. He does not look like James Houston. All right. And then Josh Paschal is someone that you can kind of plug and play, but he's not someone that you're depending on to get to the quarterback consistently. So, yeah, if you want to do some research, Dan Graziano, you would find out that the Lions need an edge rusher. All right. They need an edge rusher. That is the obvious thing. If it's not Max Crosby, I'm not interested. Okay. Don't mention a Raider getting traded to the Lions unless it's Max Crosby.
Are you guys shocked, though, that was like a thing today? Because I'm not going to lie. That was a little shocking. I thought in my head when I first saw the Davante Adams news, I was like, there's no way that there's going to be a link to the Lions. And it's not really a link, but a lot of fans are like, yeah, let's get this done. Are you guys shocked by that? I was shocked this morning.
That what? Sorry, I was doing
that there was like any correlation or link to the Detroit Lions by fans.
It was
and, like people
that's all it
like,
was. It was Dan Graziano.
Get him to Detroit.
Well, then the fans, yeah, there were some fans that were like, bring Davante, dude, come on. I mean, guys, yeah. I mean, I agree with Derek. It's actually disrespectful to who you have in house. I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Slappy 313 said Chris Long also said the Lions should go get Adams. So
Chris Long, you know better. I mean, you know better. You know better. I'm sure he watches film, and if he does, he would watch that the Lions, to what Lucas just said, and he nailed it. They've been trying to figure out how to put all these weapons together. So, Chris Long, why does it make sense to go on and go live or whatever? It was probably pre-recorded, but talking to a microphone and say, "Oh yeah, go get Davante Adams. That'll fix their problems." Like, no.
After the Monday night performance you just saw.
Yeah, the offense looked great. So, I mean, I don't know what we're doing. I'm disappointed in you, Chris Long, as well. All right? It's him, too. It's not just Dan Graziano.
I would be so shocked if we woke up like tomorrow morning and it's like Detroit Lions just traded for Davante. I would be like, what? I'm interested to see how this fits. You would have to.
If Brad Holmes, let's just say hypothetically, because he won't, but let's just say I get a notification that Davante Adams is a Detroit Lion, and I've been yelling into this microphone to go get Matthew Judon, and they couldn't do it. My head would explode if we got Davante Adams, but we couldn't get Matthew Judon, who is an absolute monster. And Davante's very good. I love Davante. I got a lot of respect for him. Doesn't make any sense, the fit there. It just doesn't. And again, I think Josh Pascal, he's fine. They just got it. He's fine. And I heard, I think it was Dan say that he's getting better and better every week. Yeah, he's getting better, but I don't know if he ain't this. He's not. How about this? He's not the problem, but he's not the solution. There you go.
And someplace he could be the problem. That's the issue, especially against elite players.
Yeah, because
what do you guys think though? With Davante, what if it's a guarantee? He's just hey, I'm going to come in. I don't care about the targets. I just want to win a Super Bowl. And you get that conversation with them. I do think if that comes across our desk in the morning and Brad does make that trade, I do have over the last 4 seasons have enough faith and trust in what Brad Holmes has done with this roster for him to bring a guy like Davante Adams in. If that happens and be yes, that this is going to fit in the offense. We've talked with Ben. Maybe in the deals can include a Tim Patrick. I don't know, because there's no way all of these guys work together. If it does get done, I mean, I'm with you, Jeff. I would rather have a D end, and I think Brad knows, hey, we do need depth because think about what Dan Campbell said in the press conference the other day after the injury. He was we are looking around, we're looking around for edge rushers. That's a thing, whether it's bringing a guy up or that's going out and getting one. They did say we're looking for him, and then you obviously see on Monday night they try out James Houston. James Houston has the lowest PFF grade. He has two flags throughout the game and limited snaps. And you're all right, so James Houston isn't it. You're looking at Josh Pascal. They did say they liked what they saw out of him, but it didn't stand out like a Marcus Davenport. So you're sitting there and you're they said they're looking around, whether that's bringing a guy up or that's outside. So if they are going to make a move, my thought process is probably the move that they said within a press conference the last week that they're looking to do. So if they do trade for Davante Adams, I would think they also are still looking for an edge rusher. They have a lot of money to work with. Let's just say that. They do have the money to work with.
Yeah, and let's just say another hypothetical scenario. He becomes a Lion. What? You have guys in this locker room that Amon-Ra has, what do you have, 10 yards? And he was cool with it. He's well, J-Mo went off. You're going to bring Davante here? Davante's going to want the ball. No wonder why the two teams he prefers are quarterbacks that, feed him the ball. Derek Carr and Aaron Rodgers. That's the two guys he wants to play with for a reason. Now, I think personally, I saw someone in the chat put Washington, and I'm sure that someone said Chris Long said Washington. I don't know. I didn't watch the clip, so I don't want to come to
it's a good place for him.
At Chris Long. But, Washington is an interesting spot.
You know what's a good one, too, for Davante? The Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh is a great spot for them. They're sitting there at 3-1 right now. They're trying to they have a defense. They're still trying to find an offense to be able to they have it, but with Justin Fields and Najee Harris, they're figuring this thing out. They just need if they add another wide receiver to that core, imagine Davante Adams in Pittsburgh. They're already a playoff team probably. They're number one in their division. They just take it to another level. But Washington that does make a lot of sense. Obviously, the two that make the most sense for him are the Jets and the Saints, though. Those make a lot of sense for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I want to get to some of these comments because I see people kind of chiming in. And I saw some people talking about Hassan Reddick too. And I agree with the chat. We've already kind of made that clear. No on Hassan Reddick.
I'm out.
Yeah. Culture fit.
All the way out.
At all. Player, love the player. The culture fit, his attitude, I just don't think they want anything to do with that, to be honest. No, Lion says should have traded Houston last year for a first-round pick or a second-round pick. I'm going to be honest.
You weren't getting that. Oh, my God.
You were never getting a first-round pick. Even a second. I think if you traded Houston, you'd probably get a mid-round pick, you'd say.
I will stand by it, though. In training camp, when I was saying I was get rid of, move on. That was time to move on. His value has dropped double now. You wouldn't have gotten anything crazy for him during training camp, but you probably could have found some sort of package to include him in to go get someone or go get something before training camp or when training camp's going on. Now you're you'll get nothing. No value. Nothing.
And I don't blame them. I don't blame them for not trading him. I mean, you thought he'd be what he was his rookie year. I mean, I can't. Dude. It's easy to have hindsight and be well, they should have traded him. But coming off his rookie year, there's no way they want to let him go.
Last year,
yeah, last year. And then he got injured, but even then, it's okay, he'll be back and he'll be James Houston, and it's the opposite. He's actually not James Houston.
Remember when we saw
just in another way? He's literally
he's Houston. We have a problem.
Houston is the problem.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we saw him at training camp? I kept bringing it up during the show during training camp. It was just he doesn't look the same. Coming off the injury, he looked like he might have put a little. I don't know if he put weight on or whatever, but the bend didn't look right in training camp. He looked maybe a little slower. It just didn't look like it was the James Houston from year one. And I did take a lot of heat for a couple of weeks there, being I don't think James. Remember, I was does James Houston even make the team? I was one of the first ones to be I don't think he makes the team. And he was the last guy to make the team. And you've seen he's been inactive for multiple weeks. He didn't look good last week. I would rather see Isaac Ukwu out there over the last 4 weeks and get him run than have James Houston has given you over the last 4 weeks. Isaac Ukwu definitely deserves a run for what he did. And he was better than preseason than James Houston. He was.
Ukwu. I mean, just throw Ukwu out there. Malik says Jonathan Cooper from Denver. I see Schiff says Zadarius Smith. Fellas. What about EJ? Who's EJ Speed?
It's kind of like a athletic edge. He might even be out.
Sounds like a creative player.
He's one of those guys where he's not going to be great to run. He's good. He's productive.
Oh man.
I just looked up his career. In I guess 5 years he has 2 sacks.
That's a Klotzy guy. That's a Klotzy guy.
I'm saying it gets he's not going to be a guy that he'd be literally you're replacing James Houston. You know what I mean? You're not trying to upgrade.
Yeah, no,
I do love your guys, Klotzy. Where they don't have crazy stats, but I'm telling you, this guy's he's a dude, man.
Yeah, he's nice. Guys that just know their role.
Yeah,
they get the time to kind of step up.
Yeah,
Juwan Jennings.
Yeah. Well,
by the way, I saw a video today.
Yards too. That dude is ridiculous.
I saw a video today of Josh Dobbs at Tennessee throwing a Hail Mary to Juwan. I think it was Juwan Jennings versus Bama to win. It was a time off the clock. I was it popped up on my feed today.
I remember watching that play live.
I was Juwan Jennings, Josh Dobbs played together at Tennessee.
Yeah, it's
what a duo.
Because he got hurt, I think, going into the draft process, and you think he was a 7th round pick, bro.
A flu game for me, boys. I'm wiping my nose on the side.
Performance zone.
Hey, shout out to Boone.
Dirty Tigers, Dirty Boone.
Yeah, David said, "Let's get the likes up." I agree, David.
That like button. Subscribe.
let's bring in Mike. Let's bring in Mike because we're gonna have the doc join in a couple of minutes here. So we'll bring in good old Michael Gentry. Hey, Mike.
Gentlemen,
What up, baby?
how we doing?
Hey,
Big Tigers
what,
win.
Mike?
They got the
Let's put some
sweep.
Hey,
yeah.
before Doc joins, Mike, what'd you think of the game today? Electric, huh?
Oh, it was. I mean, there was some rough parts, but I mean, dude, the Tigers team's gritty. That was kind of just like a summary of how their games were to end the season. They always find a way to win. Juggling through the pitching staff right there throughout the whole game. Just electric win, man. I cannot wait for next week when they play the Guardians.
What'd you think when Job strolled out there? Were you that's like nuts on the table for me, Jay. A little nuts on the table move. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, dude, the guy has balls, but obviously it probably wasn't the best situation for him to go out there in at that time. But you know what? AJ's kind of done decisions like that throughout the whole season. So kind of sticking with his gut. And you know what? It worked out in the end. So, hell yeah.
Tigers, baby. The gritty Tigers, man.
Boom.
It's a beautiful
we'll
thing. I put money on them as soon as they went down 2-1. I looked at it. It was the 7th inning. I put like +3. It was like +350. Just sprinkled a little on there. And I was in my mind, I was like, this team always finds a way to come back and win.
They do.
And I was like, I think they're going to do it. And literally within the next 10 minutes, they went out there and just had that. Andy Ibanez, just an absolute lethal triple there to put them up 5-2.
I didn't know you sprinkle a little bit on the +350.
I did. I was sitting there working. I've been sick all day. I was like, I had a blanket on. I'm sick. I'm like watching the Tigers. I'm like, I'm just like, I might as well do this.
That's fair. Well, it is Wednesday, and I see, hey, people are starting. Come on in, get comfortable, go get some food. Hey, go get a drink. It's John Maakaron.
Grab that popcorn.
Grab a real American beer. Just chill out.
Yeah.
Please welcome, and as always, this segment is brought to you guys by BetUS. Please welcome the man, Detroit Lions on Sports Illustrated's own, the host of the Detroit Sports Podcast, Mr. John Maakaron. John, how you doing, my man?
Man, it's the bye week. It's the best week of the year for beat writers. Thank God we can drink legitimately. We can drink the Grit City all night long and no consequences, baby.
Hey, I love that, Doc. Hey, Doc, and I want to start off and ask you, just pick your brain, and we can even start with just the Monday night game. I want to ask you with the Jared Goff, what did you think of his performance specifically, this offense finally getting back to what we know them to be, and looking explosive? I get the Seahawks didn't have a couple defensive linemen, but John, Jared Goff, perfect game. He caught a touchdown. The Lions didn't put a ball in the dirt the entire game. On paper, at least statistically, they did. What'd you think of the performance on Monday night?
Yeah, it was great, man. Monday Night Football, the crowd was electric. It was good to see. Look, and I said it on the latest Detroit Sports Podcast I recorded today. Look, you never want players to go down, but the injuries that the Seahawks and the Lions suffered just made it so that another game was going to be high scoring. And I just loved it. And to me, it was a perfect game. I just thought that offensively, you looked at it and you said, hey, what better way to handle business than to hand the ball off to David Montgomery and have him, run through defensive backs. He just is an angry runner, and it was a measured game. And look, I just think that Jared Goff easing into the season, first 4 games, Dan Campbell said, look, he didn't come out and, outright and say it, but the first month of the season, when you have these starters that do not play in the preseason, it's going to take them time to get into rhythm. Boy, did he get into some nice rhythm, spreading the football around to Amon-Ra St. Brown, that lovely route to Jamison Williams where J-Mo's high stepping from the 40. Look, Goff was within himself, but we have to have the caveat, guys, okay? I saw a certain individual who's a gambler, and I read his takeaways every week. Jared Goff is God. Jared Goff is the legend of all legends. Jared Goff is Joe Montana. I almost was going to drop a calm down, but I said, you know what? I'm going to take a couple days before I see him in person and talk to him directly. Booner, Seattle was down guys. And yes, Detroit was down guys, but the guys that were down for Seattle were the biggest, baddest pass rushers on their team. So that's why Goff had a nice, clean pocket. He was able to handle his business. So, yes, it's good to go out and execute against the guys that you faced. But now what anybody else that's calm and rational would look at it and say, okay, now go do it when the badass pass rushers are there. But hey, 3-1 at the bye. It was a great performance all the way around, top to bottom.
Doc, hey, I respect your opinion. I do. I'm learning some things in life. I respect your opinion. I would like to also see him do it versus some elite pass rushers, because guess what he's going to have to do in the playoffs? He's going to have to do that. So I'm with you, Dak.
So honestly, though, wait, before your question, Booner, those aren't takeaways. Those are just, I want to come out there and just give all love to the Lions. So
for sure.
You didn't take away anything from that. You just said, you know what? I just want to go out there. And so you don't call it takeaways. You say, here's why I love the Detroit Lions. So I'm telling you what to do. Stop calling them. Those are not takeaways. Those are not takeaways. Is Jared Goff's a legend? Jared Goff is the baddest 16. Oh, shut up, all the haters. I look at that and I go, I know he's posting that laughing on the inside, but those are not takeaways from a game.
All right, Doc,
those
let me read you my takeaways.
The blue Kool-Aid and share with everybody what my opinion is.
Let me give you my takeaways, because I think
all the takeaways, Boone.
Kirby Joseph is an all-pro safety. That's a takeaway, correct? The Detroit Lions have the best offense in the NFL. That's a takeaway. J-Mo is an absolute weapon. Takeaway. Ben Johnson is currently back. That is a takeaway. And the slander of Jared Goff is officially over. Those are all takeaways. Those are takeaways, Doc. Those might be Booner takeaways. They might be Booner takeaways, but they're takeaways. Doc, I love you. I do want to ask something negative, though. I usually don't, but I do want to ask something negative. The defense, Doc. What's going on with this defense here? What are your thoughts? Like, it felt like it was the corners, the secondary a little bit. What are your thoughts on it? Was it because of Brian Branch being out and losing Derek Barnes, or is it like it seems like the pass rush has been there a little bit more than we've seen in the past. So what are your takeaways, at least with this defense, and like what do they need to do to be able to kind of take a step forward? Because they were top 10 the first 3 weeks, and then this last week it just felt like everything just went out the window. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was wild. Look, from an entertainment standpoint, that's why the league likes offense, right? And for the commenter, I loved Kenneth Walker running all over the place. Former Spartan dog got all over the place. He's on my fantasy team. So clearly I was a fan. I loved it because the Lions were dominating offensively and Kenneth Walker was doing his thing. I almost let out a cheer when he did that 21-yard touchdown. I was like, oh, that's a Spartan dog doing his thing.
Yeah.
He's great, man. He's great. So it's perfect for me. I was the one that had the biggest smile on my face because the Lions were winning and Kenneth Walker went off. Defensively, yeah, it was not their best night. But look, there's some things that Seattle does that they kind of took from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Matthew Stafford as well, which is, hey, you got it. 1-2, boom, deliver the football. You negate the pass rush when you're getting rid of the football that fast. And look, Seattle has great weapons. Tyler Lockett, Geno Smith, and DK Metcalf have been together for a while. So they understood, they have great chemistry. And whenever you have a great run game, look, that's just offensive football. Kenneth Walker opened things up. So you have to respect that a little bit. That gives attention to, the running backs. And then clearly when you have a wide receiver of the caliber of DK Metcalf, you get him the football. And within the flow of the game, the officials were just terrible calling all those flags. So then clearly you're going to target and see if you can move the football and see if you can draw some flags. And yeah, the tackling was atrocious. It was not a good game. I just thought that for whatever reason, the Seattle Seahawks have Aaron Glenn's number. And look, it was still better than before. And I think that what is opportunistic and what's great about this football team with the Lions is that, hey, when the defense this game was not their best, the offense picked it up. And boy, the Lions definitely got bailed out by their offense. But look, that's kind of where you look at it and you say, hey, in a game where it's going to be high scoring, the Lions understood that. Jack Campbell knocked the football loose. In our story where we write what's said in the locker room, I asked him, I said, I see you, doing that punch out drill all the time. He's like, yeah, man, I've been working on trying to get a takeaway for months. I just have always kind of wanted to do it. I want to get the football loose. I want to force a turnover. I want to be impactful. And it really meant a lot to him to finally cash in. And then, Kirby Joseph is just unreal in regards to his ability to get the football. So they made the plays late, and that's critical, and that's also a valuable takeaway.
And Doc, I know we're talking about the Lions right now, but I kind of want to take a step outside of it because it still kind of correlates with them. When you watch what the Minnesota Vikings are doing right now and how they are playing, how legitimate of a threat? A, do you think they're better than the Lions right now? And two, how much of a threat do you think they are not only to the NFC North, but to the NFC as a whole if they keep this up?
Yeah, that was another advantage of having the Monday night game was I got to enjoy Sunday football, got to have the televisions up, and then get to do it again this Sunday. Got the red zone.
Yeah.
And so
you got a
my
hell
day
of a
was
setup, Doc. You got a hell of a setup. I will say that.
It's great. It's a great setup to sit back, watch 11 hours of football. So I watched the Vikings and the Packers. I watched the Bears and watched the Chiefs and the Chargers. And then the main event, which was, I thought, spectacular to watch, was the Ravens really handle the Bills. So to me, I thought the Ravens had a spectacular performance. That scared the shit out of me because I was like, and I had to post about it on Twitter. I said, man, Ravens, Lions, who matches up when they're both playing their best? A lot of fans were measured. Not a lot of Booners in the crowd. They were all saying Baltimore. They were all like, what the hell are you talking about? If the Lions play their best and the Ravens play their best, it's Baltimore all day. So, okay, so some measured responses. But looking at Minnesota, man, right? Everyone's like, what the fuck has happened to Sam Darnold? Now he looks like a player that can throw the football. Well, what happened to him is he's got Justin Jefferson and his gritty self, his good old self doing his thing. And guess what? He's also on my fantasy team too. So his gritty dance, I definitely got on my phone. And I can share now, if the Lions win the Super Bowl, I have recorded several varieties of gritty dances from my basement, and they're all fly as hell. They're all going to be Detroit Lions gritties that are beyond spectacular. I will go viral if the Lions win the Super Bowl. But I'll say this. The Vikings, look, it's Kevin O'Connell is a legit great coach, and they got a nice weapon in Justin Jefferson. Jones going over there has really solidified things. But in the end, when people say, okay, let's look at Minnesota and let's look at their threat, I just think in crunch time, the Lions can get to him and he'll blink first. I think in a matchup with the Lions and the Vikings, he'll blink first. The matchup that scares me in the Super Bowl now is if the Lions get to the Super Bowl against the Ravens, I could see Terrion Arnold getting bounced off the ground from Derrick Henry. I could legit see it because the dude is a monster and he's outrunning a safety at full speed. And he got up to 21 miles an hour on his run. And when you outrun a safety, it's no easy feat with a man that size. So let's just hope that the Lions are playing their best football down the road. But I'm not scared of Minnesota. I'm not scared of Minnesota at all. I think you pressured Sam Darnold, he'll throw you the football.
Doc, I get what you're saying about Derrick Henry moving down the field, but you better hope that Nate Wiggins doesn't see David Montgomery. I'll tell you that much. I'll tell you that.
Nate, it's too small. It's too small.
Yeah, and Doc, we kind of going back to the defense, we got to see our first looks at James Houston. Obviously, that was not what a lot of people were expecting, maybe what some were expecting after kind of what boiled down with him making this roster and whatnot. Obviously, it wasn't very good. Got a few penalties, really didn't look like the James Houston of the past. Kind of just want your thoughts on him, or is this going to be like the last time we see James Houston, do you think?
Well, you brought up James Houston, so that means automatic drink. Ooh, let me get my thoughts together. James Houston, huh? You want to talk about him, huh? Okay. Okay. Well, his stat line was, that's about it, and 2 penalties. So it was horrible. Oh man, he only got 14 snaps. It's just, I think there's a chemistry thing now going on. He clearly, was out. He didn't do the job to the best of his ability to showcase why he deserves more playing time, and it's unfortunate. You would like to see a little bit more impact, but at this, you can't take those penalties. It's a hindrance now, so that's not a good sign for a player that people thought could do something. So there's probably, a dual situation where the coaching staff is like, okay, we know that he can't do more than just a couple things. And he's sitting there probably disenfranchised, frustrated that it's not going well. The year that he had off just really ruined his development. And I just think that, I just think that this marriage probably is going to end maybe at the trade deadline, maybe when his contract is up. I don't think the future is going to be that much longer for James Houston. It doesn't seem like he fits in, right? It just seems like he's there. The fans they see the potential, but when you go out there and you hurt your team, it's just not a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, Doc, and you do it, and this is why we appreciate you and the way you cover the Lions, because I see across my timeline today a lot of Lions fans, sharing Dan Graziano of ESPN's little insight to who could be, interested in Davante Adams. What teams make sense? And he put the Lions there. It makes no sense. The only Raider I think the Lions should be interested is Max Crosby. I don't think they'll ever trade him. But in your opinion, your thoughts on that report, but also Josh Pascal's play and just kind of the Lions in their need for an edge, like a kind of a bookend at this point. And it's something the Lions potentially could be interested in come the trade deadline.
Yeah. Look, and here, you guys can now, as you guys consumed information on a daily basis, you start to see how reports are framed. And the word that was key in Dan Graziano's report is potentially. Okay. So what that means is when these guys start to make their list, look, I can share how it goes. The editor will say, hey, Dan, which teams could potentially want to have Davante Adams? And then he'll just go and he'll start reading and he'll look and he'll see, okay, well, the Lions have cap space. They've kind of been reports all over the place that the team is still looking for a wide receiver 3 and maybe not as comfortable. So that's a potential fit. Now, the difference is if it's more serious, you start to hear report like it's heating up. The Lions have inquired. So look, it makes no sense. Why does that report not make any sense? And I know people will gravitate toward that. And I could have wrote the headline that said, the Lions are potentially a landing spot for Davante Adams, but I think we've covered that before. We've gone through the gamut of a lot of players at this point. But the reason why Davante Adams makes no sense, he's 31 years old. If you're going to make a trade, they want a second rounder and another asset, and he's going to want another contract. And he's not coming here for $10 million. He wants Amon-Ra money, like, hey, I'm the guy with the most touchdowns. I'm a legit weapon. And I just don't think that that's a fit in any capacity. I would be shocked if I'll send you a Grit City bottle of bourbon if they end up with Davante Adams, because I see him going to New Orleans or the New York Jets or Pittsburgh. I do not see in any capacity that this football team would go and do that. And the blessing is Brad Holmes did an interview where he said, the great reporter, Brad Galley, great television host, he asked legitimately Brad Holmes, fans like Booner, they want to go all in. And hey, he's like, you know what? Look, I'm not a prisoner of the moment. We got to look at the present and the future. He's like, I talked to the guys and I know the demand to go all in and to make the trade and stuff like that, but I don't see that happening. I think that they would take on a guy that maybe has a 1-year deal left or has, an opportunity to prove themselves. So yeah, I could see some things at the deadline. Blockbusters, I don't think so, because you also have to sign Aiden, J-Mo down the road, Jack Campbell. You have all these guys that are already on your roster that you have. So it's always fun. Look, the GM stories, look, I do them. Clearly, I do them. Why do I do them? Because people read them. Now, you just have to read between the wording of the realism of it. So we typically, the way in which I do the GM story is simple. I just call it pros and cons. Like, let's just discuss it. You know what I mean? I don't do official, Lions are significantly interested in this guy. I just look at it like, let's talk about it. Like, what's the contract value? Is he worth it? And things like that. And so also too, guys, Tim Patrick, those 2 catches were nice. He's coming on. Yeah. So Davante Adams, you don't need him. You really, like you said, like you guys are focusing in on, if you're going to make a move, focus on defense, because Josh Pascal was okay, but I just think that you can find better out there. I think the name that you saw that flashed on Sunday was Trey Hendrickson. I was like, man, that guy would look good in the Lions.
Talk uniform. To me, Doc.
He would look good. That's a name that I don't know if we did it yet. It's early in the month. I feel like we've done like really every single free agent that's out there possibly, because you do stories every single day. So I've done a little bit less of the GM stories at this point, but Trey Hendrickson looks nice. I think he'd look nice in the Lions uniform. But Josh Pascal, they like their own guys. And I know it's always fun to talk about, but the Lions are hesitant. Like I said, they need to check 5-6 boxes before they bring on somebody. So it's always tough, but we'll see at the deadline how it's shaking out. But look, the pass rusher has been okay. It can be better, but it's been okay.
And John, real quick, I just want to add on to that. Do you think, and I got to watch here. All right. Because Brad, trust the man. I'm with you. But do you think sometimes that can be a flaw of like falling in love with your own guys? Because there's got to be a moment in time where you just kind of look at a player and be like, maybe he's not enough. Like, you get what I'm saying? Can that sometimes be a weakness to trust your own guys too much? Like, it's good to do, but sometimes you got to know when to do it, when not to do it.
No, absolutely. And the Lions have taken calculated risks, but they've been on guys that have been injured. And I'd like to see them take a calculated risk on somebody that kind of is a little bit more productive, a little bit higher end. And I look, and here's the thing with players, the Lions have come in and said, and it speaks to the way in which teams are built. The Lions have come in, Brett Holmes has come in and said, the way we're building sustained success, that key word to keep general managers here for a long time, draft and develop. Draft, you know why? Because you do all your research. You actually talk to the player. You get a sense of, hey, go on the board and do this. Okay, then Dan Campbell's going to scribble it out and say, do what happens in this situation. Throw a couple zingers out there. Throw a couple scenarios and see how they adapt. Look at it psychologically. The Lions clearly like guys with a certain mindset. And free agents are different. And here's why. Naturally speaking, when you sign a guy that you just haven't done work on, there's always that fear that, hey, if I give you $15 million a year and over the next 5 years and $75 million guaranteed, are you going to run through the wall through the absolute diehard, do it all mentality? There's some naturally propensity to kind of settle a little bit. So I just think that having young, hungry guys is also a great asset for the Lions because these guys are fighting for their contracts. You're going to get the absolute most out of a player. And they're just scared that, hey, you invest in somebody, now you've just wasted this cap space on somebody that's kind of, what Antonio Pierce said, which was damning, but you saw people have found the play. Antonio Pierce, when the Raiders were losing, said, hey, some of these guys are going into business for themselves. And you can't have that. You can't have guys letting up on tackles. You can't have guys show up from outside and then impact things because a couple bad apples and they don't produce, it's going to upset the apple cart. So I understand the philosophy. I understand, but I'm also understanding what Brad's saying. So you got to go out there basically, to me, just get the best guys. Get the guys that have the best opportunity to fit here and get one or two guys. I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to shore up this team. They're not going to sacrifice a million draft picks to do it, but they're going to get some guys here at the trade deadline. I truly believe it because this football team is going to give Brad Holmes every reason to make the full run for the Super Bowl because this team can win it. This team can do it. And I think that there will be opportunities to add, no doubt.
Hey, Doc, I do want to throw out there, it is the bye week, obviously. How good of timing do you think this is? Because I know a lot of people were upset with the early bye week, but it does feel like with a guy like Frank kind of down a little bit, there's been some guys who have been beat up. Is this kind of a good timing going into the bye week? Guys feel good, get some guys back. Will Frank, I guess specifically, will Frank be back for Dallas? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no doubt. Real fast in the chat, if you got questions, fire them away. These guys will ask. Like I said, I feel like I'm as much over the last 2 years in tune with what's going on with the Lions as anybody. I'm there every single day. So fire away. And to the guy that thinks I'm a Bulgarian drug dealer, look, man, give me the credit. I'm Mediterranean and Middle Eastern. We don't need to. We're more like the cartel. So I'm the drug lord, not the drug dealer. Come on, man. And so looking at it from what you're talking about in terms of when it first came out, I was just like, fuck, 4 weeks. That's way too early. But the way in which the season shook out, it's perfect. It's literally, and actually with the training camp and the month of September, I went hard in August and September. And I think you guys saw I'm like showing up on everybody's podcast. I like all the time. I haven't said no in 2 months. And for me, I just looked at it and said, whew, it's good for me. The last 2 days, just sleeping 10 hours, I feel like on top of the world. And I told the Lions PR there when I talked to them in the locker room, they said, "You ready for the bye week?" I said, "Hell yeah!" And because you just kind of get away from it because you're so immersed in it, the stats, the numbers, the film, looking at the game for the future. So for the Lions, yeah, it came at the right time. They got to get healed up. Brian Branch should return. Ragnow, I think you need to be a little delicate with. I'm not sure if he'll return for Dallas because that's going to be a tough physical game. I think when you saw Graham Glasgow, that just gives you the utmost. I mean, Glasgow and Coyote, they just did a stellar job. Again, it's against a battered team, but they did enough to give you confidence that if you need to let Frank get a little bit healthier, then that's fine too. But it's going to be fun because guess what, fellas? The DOC is heading to Texas to try for the first time, getting on a plane in first time in 7 years, getting on a plane and handling business. And Whew, it's going to be
You're gonna
crazy.
be in Jerry's world, Doc?
Going to Jerry's World because everybody said it's the craziest place for the media. It's fun, food, and I don't know what's crazy. I don't know how I'm going to handle it, but they said that there's beer there in the media room. I'm like, they're going to serve the Doc beer. I better stay away. I'm just going to go for the ice cream sundaes and the crazy whatever food they got. But it's main event. If I got to see, I mean, you got to see Jerry World. You got to see it. So I'm going to be there flying out that Friday, the 11th. I can't wait for the 13th on the game. And the bye week just came at the perfect time. But like we said, and I think I said it to you guys, this should be the utmost motivation when Dan returns on Monday with these guys and say, hey, we got to fight for the next 13 weeks so that we can get that next week off for the bye week. Get the number 1 seed, handle business, because that's a grind. 13 straight games. You just want to be as healthy as possible to give yourself the best chance to compete. And I really want to see the Lions in the playoffs healthy because they're going to be a tough team to play. Physical, smart, good offensive players, and a growing defense. I just want all the pieces there and to give you the best chance to win.
Hey, don't let Doc get loose out in Dallas.
Don't let Doc get hot out there. Hell no.
Got some strip clubs out there, Doc. Hold on.
Yeah, just I'll make sure I got all your numbers because I might text you guys like, hey, I'm in Mexico and I found myself in a strange gal. I don't know. She's asking for money. I messed up. Can you come get me?
Yeah.
Latina, Doc? Latina?
Yeah.
Latina, all the way. Why not?
I'll be there to bail you out, Doc.
Thank you.
But another guy another guy that's been bailing the Detroit Lions out of situations is Kirby Joseph, Doc. Especially with Brian Branch being hurt last week, he really stepped up. After last week, and I think I was already kind of on the side of, okay, re-sign Kirby. Do you think that it could be potentially as soon as this offseason? If it happens, do you think it happens for one? And if they do, could it be this offseason with the Detroit Lions bringing back Kirby Joseph on a new deal?
Yeah, dude, he earned it, right? I think the guy is one of the great safeties. And the pairing with even with Brandon Joseph, he joked the Joseph brothers are now open for business. Look, man, the guy has, he's got the talent that everybody would want, which is, hey, be a ball hawk, secure the interception. He's just got the flair for the dramatics. I think that he embodies what the Lions are looking for, tough physical safety, still growing in terms of his consistency and coverage and recognizing everything. But when you're just a guy with that skill and you're able to impact the game, it's something that clearly he's going to be somebody that the Lions want to invest in, and he's earned it. And he's going to be the captain of the defense pretty soon because of his ability. Once he grows up a little bit in terms of maturity on the field too, in regards to, hey, making sure your game is consistent, game in, game out, man, no doubt about it. I think that they'll start those conversations. I'm curious too, because, with Ali McNeil too, there's got to be an odd man out. Could it be Ali McNeil? You got to pay him. He's great in the interior. So, the blessing is though, that gives you some solace is that the salary cap keeps going up higher and higher with numbers that are a little bit more surprising than normal. So that gives you another opportunity to go out there and handle it. But man, it's just great. Branch and Kirby together forever for a long time. It lets everybody rest easy.
The best safe to do in the league, Doc.
That'd be like a defensive Jameer and Monty, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yep. Agree with that.
And Doc, it's the bye week. Obviously, you got a week off. So let's talk some Tigers. Your thoughts on the Tigers win today and then their chances against the Guardians. Either way, it's going to be electric. Doc, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, man. Now, finally good. We can talk some baseball, man. Look, it was great. I had a feeling, if you go back and check on the accountability report, I had a feeling this baseball team would take a step, not a playoff step. I just thought that when I did the season prediction, I had them winning 88 games. And once the season went, here's my accountability. With Javier Baez, that team was unwatchable. It was unlikable. It was ridiculous. And I had said somewhere else in the chat, I said, there's no way AJ Hinch is playing this guy based on his own choice. He's being told, play this guy, because that guy is a negative WAR player. He sucks. And what took so long, I joked with the injuries. You never want to joke with injuries, but when he'd have a ding up, I'd say, okay, this needs to be like a 6-month rehab. Just anything to get Javier Baez off my television. And what happened? Javier Baez is away from this lineup. The youth kicks in, and what happens? They're able to take off. And I just think that it's the starting point. So all those people that are like, oh, I was on the bandwagon forever. Okay, fine. Well, I was not on the bandwagon. I was on the I hate Javi bandwagon. I don't want to watch this. The memes are funny. I created some of them with the curveballs and the nonsense, but you don't really want to joke about that for a whole season. Once he was gone, oh my God, the youth movement kicked in. The guys actually with this bullpen outdid what they've kind of been known to do. This Tiger baseball team, look, it's a great thing to embrace the gritty Tigers. So it's been great. My love of baseball has been sparked again. I watch baseball, but to be honest with Javier Baez, just start watching box scores. But now that this month kicked in right when they started winning, and after that game in against the series against the Yankees, I was all on board. I'm watching and I'm like, okay, Scooble's still doing his thing. And craziness in that, this theory that AJ Hinch did in regards to the opener, when he first did it in Detroit, it was in the Zoom era. And I was on a Zoom call with him and I asked him directly, I said, what's the benefit of doing it? Because everyone was like, this was like 3-4 seasons ago. And everyone was like, you have an opener. I know Tampa Bay's done it. A lot of people are starting to do it. I asked him his philosophy and he directly told me that, hey, it does give us an advantage of knowing, what our guy's going to do. And the opponent doesn't know because we could throw anybody in at any given time. And so I recalled that and I said, man, AJ Hinch is just a great manager. And he was able to overcome the adversity that he faced in another spot. He came here and he's managing like a wizard with a bunch of young guys that are hungry, that know no better. But at the same token, it's disrespectful to say young and dumb. I know we throw that out flippantly. Young and hungry. These guys just want to go out there and do the best. The sickest thing I think, and I can't believe this, and I didn't do the research to confirm it, but the Spot Track tweet is the sickest tweet I think I've ever seen. This playoff payroll is $19 million total. What the fuck? Chris Ilitch must be like, if we can get $19 million production like this is great. He's gotta be like, I'm getting the best value in the history of sports without paying a superstar. He's gonna be like, Scott, we got to do this more often. This is the best thing I've ever seen. I'm going to get 2 gates at Comerica. I'm going to get some cash. I got a couple of cash gates with the watch parties. He's got to be the happiest man on earth because he made some money paying the payroll $19 million. And the guy that we smacked around today, the reliever, he's making 19 on his own. So this team is great to watch. I've been like everybody else. I'm much more of an emotional fan in baseball than in football because I'm around it. But baseball yesterday, game 1, my heart was racing in the 9th inning. And then today I was, and luckily when I watch sports and I know I'm going to be like that, I was by myself today. I was just watching. I was like, once Job was missing, I was like, what the fuck is going on? Job, can you not throw a strike? God darn it, AJ Hinch. How dare you throw this guy in this situation? A rookie? Are you effing kidding me? I was cussing up a storm and walking back and forth. I'm all in. I'm invested. I don't know yet. I haven't looked, but there's a chance, I'm going to apply for a credential to go Wednesday. If not, I'll find a way into the building. I want to be around it because I was all there when they went to the World Series twice. It just sparks so many great memories of the Leland era. And now you guys get to enjoy it in your youth. Enjoy it. Enjoy every pitch. Enjoy the ambiance of the game. Enjoy the nuance, the comeback that they had today. Take it all in. Baseball is a sport that you can really get emotionally invested in. And these Tigers have earned our respect and go out there and support. And whatever happens, it's and this is what a preview of my podcast tomorrow. I said, this is actually maybe a little bit even more fun than the Lions because the Lions have expectations. This is what we know they need to do. This is crazy because it's like icing on the cake. It's like unexpected fun. It's like finding $100 bill in your pocket and you're just like, hey, this is great. And whatever happens, you can go down this road and the future's bright with Scott Harris. And it's good for him that a lot of these guys are showing out and doing things. These guys deserve it because it took a lot of shit. And now they're enjoying some of the fruits of their labor.
Well, and Doc, just your thoughts on Detroit sports. I mean, you have the Tigers who, won a playoff series first time in a long time. The Lions just did it. The Red Wings expected to make the playoffs. Then you have the Pistons kind of just, you're working your way back. We're trying to see if they have a pulse still. What's your thoughts on just kind of the uprise in Detroit sports and what it means right now to be a Detroit sports fan? Only one of few cities to have 4 sports teams, and 2 of them are in the playoffs. Well, one of them will be, and the other one is currently.
Yeah.
Great stat, Jeff.
Yes. And good job, Jeff. Good work. Good hustle. It's great. And I'll tell you this. I think my lucky stars, I think you guys see it. Maybe I do it too much. I don't know. But every week I thank God, and I post on Twitter, thank you guys for letting a regular guy that just covered sports literally cover all the Detroit teams and be able to podcast. And it was hard, but I love it. So the last 10 years don't feel like a drag because I'm optimistic. I like the rebuilds. I like the idea. I like complaining. So it's definitely more fun to win. Covering sports in Detroit is crazy because people will debate you. They will have great conversations. You got the extreme fans that just everything is perfectly all fine all the time. And then you got the wildly negative fans. You got the people in the middle. So Detroit has everything. The sports scene literally has everything that a person who loves sports would want. Podcasts all over, networks all over, people embedded all over. It's just amazing. And now you look at the teams. To me, I can respect the grittiness of the teams, but I also like the Deion Sanders superstar types too. Like I'm okay with some guys that would come in. Like, could you imagine if the Lions signed a dude that would wear a fur coat in and out, like an Antonio Brown type, just a big personality that was young and flashy? You know, they kind of go with the more low key kind of people, but at the same token, Flash is entertaining on that side of it. So the guys on the Lions are entertaining, but they do kind of fit that mold of let's be as tight knit as possible. But it's good because it used to be rebuild city here in Detroit. Now you're starting to see some of the fruits of the rebuild, and it's great with the Lions on the verge of potentially having another postseason run, the Tigers making a run. You have the Red Wings that I think are a season or two away from consistently making a run. The issue, the drunk uncle of Detroit sports is the Pistons. Man, they are brutal in everything that they do, top to bottom, from ownership to the way they run things. Literally, think about it. When Cade Cunningham signed his mega deal, did he talk? There was no media session. It was like, where was the pomp and circumstance for Cade? You have a media day. You wait a couple months for Cade to talk. The way the Pistons do things is like, I don't know. I don't know if they're anti-publicity. Like they have their own people, but I think they're the furthest behind in terms of like, hey, you kind of got to get that social media guy to kind of hype up the guys on your team. Go like take, the old reporter that you got there and have him stick a microphone in these players' face. He works for you. You need to kind of invest in these people talking to the media. Like they're rough. And so that's like, they literally are the worst at everything. And again, now you hope that Trajan Langdon can come in and be like, what the heck is this? Scrape out all the sludge, fix all the issues, get this team a little bit further along because the other three will pass them. And it sucks. It stinks because literally the Pistons, you can see it literally if you do a live show, you can see the metrics literally live dying as you talk about the Pistons. So you talk about the Wings and the Tigers and the Lions and you stay afloat. And we just hope that the Pistons get into some kind of rehab and figure out how to get their act together so that we can talk about them in a realistic way instead of making fun of them. But the other teams, they're inching forward, and it's the best town. Detroit is literally the best town to cover sports. I couldn't do it. I always picture myself, okay, because, you naturally think, okay, you've done this for 6 years. You've reached the metrics of everything you've dreamed of. Could I drop some weight, cut this off and put myself in front of the television and do reports and do other stuff? I don't want to go to Connecticut. I don't want to go to Florida. I want to do this. And so this is what I'm going to do forever. Like, unless something comes along that would blow me away and they just said, hey, this is Monty Williams type stuff, then I'm doing this for the rest of my life because I wake up every day and I'm fired up. You guys see 7 a.m. There's a SI story, 2-3 appearances a week. All the stories, all the coverage. The blessing of covering sports is there's so much to do and talk about that you cannot get enough. And I told my friend this. I said, I'm not addicted to anything, but but I'm addicted to Detroit sports. I love it. I love the competitiveness, the nothing like the roar of a crowd when they're happy. And these fans of Detroit deserve that when they got that. The party that happened when the Tigers clinched was a release of emotion that these fans deserved. The party atmosphere, it's something that the investment that these fans give to these players, there's nothing like it in the world. And I'm glad to be part of it.
Well, hey Doc, what was it like at Ford Field on Monday night? I know I knew some people who were there, and I saw a lot of videos and things. But like just you mentioning there, the Detroit fan base, not just the Lions, but just Detroit in general. And you see Monday Night Football. And I'm sure you're going to see next week at Comerica Park on Wednesday night. Just what this Detroit fan base is about. What was it like Monday Night Football? The Kelvin Johnson thing, the black uniforms were back. The just a massive win. It felt like finally beating the Seahawks. Was it rocking there?
Yeah, it's always different for me because, again, I've been now to several Monday night games. So for me, it's a work mode. So I try not to because I get jealous. Like literally, I'm jealous of the guys that get to sit with their friends and do watch party. I'm jealous, like truly jealous that I can't be a fan on, because I consider myself probably a big fan of the Lions, but I have to kind of shift into kind of work mode. So for me, it's a little different. The vibe is always great. It's loud as all hell all the time. So to me, it's become normalized to be part of that atmosphere. So I'm not paying attention to that. I got so many things to check off that it's like basically air traffic control. When I get in there, I sit down and then it's like, okay, who's, going to be inactive, getting some text into some information that can be out or looking at who's out there on the field. So it's a fun atmosphere. Ford Field is great. It's loud. And when the fans are roaring, it's just great. You immerse yourself in it. But I just can't, for me, allow myself too much to get into it because I'll get distracted. So I'm typing and I'm looking at a bunch of screens and figuring out everything that's going on. So it's unfortunate that right away when the Lions won, they jacked up the price 60% on these good fans. It's tough. A lot of good people that had tickets lost them because they couldn't afford it, and people are scrambling. The secondary market's killer. The average price to get into Ford Field is like $260, and for a family of four for one day, you're talking about $1,000. That's a little steep, in these times. So I look at it like it's a blessing and opportunity. I get to walk into that field and cover the team and take advantage of it to the fullest. It's a great place to watch football. I think it's nice. It's good seats for a majority of where you're sitting. It's pretty family friendly in my opinion. And it's just for me, it's just tough because I'm in work mode. And real fast, I like what the guy said. If I owned the Pistons, I would I reminded the commenter of Tom Gores. I wouldn't be that bad. I think I would have more of a mouthpiece. I'd have Jeff kind of just do more of the talking for me. I'd be up there being like, having to calm people down. Like, you can't fire JP Pickerstaff after 5 games. I don't care. I want to win right now.
Yeah,
but I would not. No, I would have a mouthpiece. I would not try and make myself. You can't be like that. I know clearly I would say things that would not be taken well in any capacity. So I would have a mouthpiece but no doubt about it. I'll tell you this. If I ever shifted my attention to something like that of ownership, the Pistons would be world champs in 5 years, no doubt, or less, because it would be the only thing I thought about would be holding that championship. And everything that I've touched has turned to gold. And it's through hard work, working with the right people. There's no way in hell 20 years would pass where the city of Detroit would be compensating me at a high level to not win a championship. No way in hell. I would be, I'd like to be considered the Robert Kraft of the Pistons.
Hey,
Doc is an owner.
You pulled a little Bob Kraft, the Bob Kraft.
Yeah. No, you guys would be like, oh my God, Doc. He's got Natalie Kerwin as the GM. He's got, he's got different people. He's like, Doc. I'll be like, no, okay, you're right. I gotta, have more professional stuff like that. You know what? A lot of people do joke about it. They say, I would end up like the owner of the former owner of the Redskins, where he had all those nasty scandals and stuff like that. No, guys, I'm not like that. But you have to be tempted when you're a man in power. you're tempted, but no, I would keep it professional. I'd have all the people in front of me doing all the hard work. I would just be out there in front of, like, basically you would see me basically just
getting
hiring,
fed grapes. That's what you'd be getting.
I'd be hiring somebody to just, a bunch of PR to make the Pistons look good. But I just can't believe the Pistons owner has done this bad a job. You really,
Doc,
it's so bad.
The worst franchise in all of sports right now.
Oh,
I think they're below the Panthers. They're below. There's no franchise in the country, any sport, any professional sport, that is worse than what's going on. And the Doc, he just went and bought the percentage of the chart. It's unbelievable. They should investigate this guy and get him out quick. Doc, he should get the team to you. I'm with you on that.
I don't know what I got to
help they can get, Doc.
Yeah,
Doc, I don't know what I got to do to see a winner. I mean,
what do you got to do, man? It's this is different. This is better. I think starting with Cade is good. I like the foundation. I like at least the guys on the current roster can shoot. I think you'll get into the 20s in victories. It won't be as bad. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with these Pistons. But yeah, they're in the completely prove it to me mode because they've not done a single thing that would indicate to me that investment in more than just, okay, briefly pay attention and check out how the games are turning out.
Doc, this team's so bad. We're talking about taking a step forward and winning 20 games.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Like that's an actual step forward. That's how bad we really are. It's just brutal, Doc. Brutal.
It's an absolute
they need you in the front office.
No doubt, right?
I just want to see something, Doc. I mean, I've been putting in some work here. Hey, I've been defending that franchise. And I'm excited to cover them this year, hey fellas. I mean, hey, we're gonna be covering. I'm excited to cover.
Are you guys covering the Pistons? Are you guys covering the Pistons?
So we're gonna do our Jeff will, and we're all gonna do our best to do what we can, Doc. I mean, you know how it is. We'll see how that works.
Yeah, the views. We gotta watch the views.
I mean, I'm originally, Doc. I grew up a basketball guy. I was all basketball, so I would love for the Pistons to be good, so I could talk some hoops, but. Doc, you're a guy that, we're talking about what do people want to hear? No one wants to talk about the worst franchise in all of sports.
Right. So in that sense, you got to be super entertaining. You got to be super inside and get all the players to talk to you. But that's rough, man. That's a rough thing to try and cover. I give the guys that try that credit because that's a grind and the fans tune out quick. 5 games in and nobody's paying attention. That's crazy. That's great. Right. And also baseball.
That's really all it took.
162 games is a long grind. I get in and out September to December, man. It's great.
Hey, Doc, can I ask you this just specifically before we because we've kind of been talking Detroit sports, but I do have a question regarding the Lions. Tim Patrick, what do you think of this? I mean, Tim Patrick's been impressing me, Doc. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Tim Patrick's looked very good. And on top of that, you're getting him for pennies, Doc. Pennies, and they seem to be trusting him more and more. He's someone that I think easily could fill that JMO role. Last year was like 300 yards. They can get that out of Tim Patrick. What do you think of what he's meant to this team now as the weeks go by, getting more and more involved?
Yeah, no doubt. I like it. I think that, he's a big-bodied receiver, gaining a little bit more chemistry. It's good to see him get a couple catches real fast to just divert real fast. I like the chat wanting me and Booner to throw down again. Look, we don't just organically want to fight. You know what I mean? Just, if there's something to debate, we'll debate it. But I think once Booner saw that he came for the king and he got chewed up and spit out, he ain't coming for the king.
I will say this, Doc.
He ain't coming for the king.
I'll go after anyone. I do not. I will never back down. What people don't know is Doc and I have a really good relationship.
Yeah.
I love the Doc. Doc took me under his wing at a PGA event. And said, I don't know if we're allowed to say what we did.
Yeah, I'll tell him. I don't care.
Doc said, Booner, you're coming in the ropes with me. And he took me inside the ropes on the final round of the biggest, a massive tournament and said, you're walking with me as there's security detail following us. And I'm shaking. And the Doc's like, Boone, you're with me. So I respect the Doc always. There's nothing.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I see you guys hustle and everything like that. So that's just fun too, because you got to have a little fun and a little risk. And I was like, to me, because I fought so hard to get inside the ropes, the first 2 years they kept me out. I was, my path in the media has always been, you get initial access, but there's limitations. And then finally, with the relationship with SI, everything has just been full on, come in, cover everything. And it's great. So I was just like, Booner, let's just come watch from this vantage point. You're not going to have a problem because, look, I'm the lowest risk person on earth. I'm 5'4". I'm very nice. There's never going to be an issue. I have the nice bright badge. What are they going to say? And so, and it's golf. They're just going to say, excuse me, sir. Excuse me, Booner. We're going to need you to step outside the lines. Okay, what are they going to do? They're not going to throw you out. There's some level of decorum in golf. So it was fun. Absolutely. So
imagine if I just got tackled on like the 15th green. That would be tough, Doc.
Yeah. So Tim Patrick, look, man, I just think that he's going to steadily, you like that 2-3 catches, another option. But I do think that that's overblown because, look, again, 5 people. Look, you got to feed Jahmyr Gibbs. I asked Dan Campbell. He's like, he sees Jahmyr Gibbs being this close from breaking some big ones. You got to feed Jahmyr Gibbs. You got to keep feeding David Montgomery, Amon-Ra, Sam Laporta. Now I think is going to continue to emerge now that he's got his legs under him. You just need that option that Jared Goff can trust. That hey, in a pinch where hey the pressure's coming, he's got an outlet to get the ball and some more 50-50 balls that he can tackle will be great. I think that he's a good fit. And as long as he stays healthy, then I think he'll be a nice piece. Will he get to the level of production as a Josh Reynolds? I don't think so. That is something that was just unique as a friendship. It develops over time. You're not going to get that over a season, but you'll get some level of productivity that's very productive and very much an asset for this football team. But boys, this football team wins by pounding the rock. Focus on the offensive line, pound the rock. If Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery continue to get better throughout the year, you're not stopping this football team. You just control the clock and you play defense. If you are able to run the football effectively in the playoffs, in the regular season, there's going to be injuries. There's going to be scheme advantages that you have. In the playoffs, it's mano a mano. It's grit. It's, hey, run the ball when you need to. Like you could even argue that those passes to Josh Reynolds maybe should have been runs, but at the same token, they're going to line up. The strategy will be to, put a lot of people in the box, and you got to execute sometimes, by throwing the football. So I can't wait to see the Lions take on the creme de la creme. And it starts with Dallas. They have some advantages. I think the Lions, we'll talk about it next week, but I think the Lions are going to have a good chance to outwork and out-hustle the Cowboys. So it's a good time with the Lions all the way around in regards to, guys, we're talking about, in years past, the Lions would have injuries and I'd be crying. I'd be like telling my guy, man, we're doing a preview. A couple guys hurt, they're losing, and they would lose. They'd find ways to lose. Now they're finding ways to win. And it's such a different thing to look at. Like we're talking advanced scheme. We're talking Ben Johnson on third down. Stop calling toss plays, pound the rock.
Yeah,
it's
oh my God.
A much better spot to talk football like this than it is to just being like, oh my God, another muff punt, another blown lead, another Hail Mary. Just think of the ways that Jim Caldwell lost games. Dude, I still play some of those rants from the crazy ass ways that the Lions would lose games. They would have leads and then blow it. And the way Matt Patricia, who was a defensive guru but couldn't coach defense. So this is a great time. I'm appreciating every single minute. That's why I think I'm doing so many interviews, is that I just want to keep the positive wave going, because I've talked for hours and hours and hours about bad football. I want to catch up analyzing good football, and you guys have helped me so much, and I appreciate that.
Oh, we love you, Doc. I got a couple listener questions. A couple people have questions for you, Doc, before we get you out of here. First one comes from Booner's daddy. He says, love
the fans, man. Love the people.
Can't confirm or deny if it is Booner's daddy, but he says, with Branch being back in the play of the secondary, does the Doc see the potential for the defense is mixing it up some sets or continuing to stay in the base defense?
Yeah, look, the defense is a work in progress. I do see them staying in base a little bit. I understand the idea for exotic type stuff and doing different type things, but right now I think that as they work in these guys, now the loss of Derek Barnes is a little bit impactful, but the secondary, I think you look at it from the perspective of how they operate. I like the fact that they got 2 corners that can play man-to-man. I wish that the physicality would be allowed a little bit more. I think the league's targeting them. There's going to be and with how Aaron Glenn operates, you can clearly see it's matchup based. So you're going to have to adjust to when you got a CeeDee Lamb handling business and Dak Prescott. But I've loved the fact that, hey, in certain opportunities, You have to basically keep it simple, pressure the quarterback, and don't let too many explosive plays happen in the secondary. The thing that's been a killer, though, is in the secondary, been a little bit too handsy. And I think in my opinion, I think the Lions publicly stating that they want to kill people and be violent publicly has put a target on their back. And on the latest Lone Wolves podcast, I said that I just think that the league is kind of viewing them as the bad boy Pistons, and they're getting the flags thrown on them to say, hey, you can talk all your S, but we're not going to let you do that. So I just hope that they let them play, because it's not fair to Tyrion Arnold. Some of those calls have been weak. Carlton Davis had to plead to let me play against DK Metcalf. But I think that the defense has been great so far, and Aaron Glenn deserves a lot of credit.
All right. Next question. He said, Nemesis Break says, Doc, when Goff gets another perfect game, how enthusiastic will you be?
Yeah, I'm very enthusiastic. When the Lions play well, hopefully it comes across that I'm excited. But see, to me, and I think maybe it comes across that I'm negative, but I'm more the type of like the Belichick type. Like, I expect them to win. Like that's fine. I'm not the rah-rah cheerleader. I'm like, okay, we won 42-29. How come they didn't win 52-29? Right. So I think that's truly the attitude that I take, because look, I think people realize I'm a fan of Detroit sports. Like, there's nobody that would put in the hours to broadcast a decade through rebuilds if they didn't like the teams that they were covering. You would burn out. But I'm of the mindset, just from my life, from the opinion of like, I could definitely go down the road of I'm great, I've done a lot of this, but to me that stalls out productivity. So I'm more of like, hey, the run game did this. How come they didn't do more? Why did they call that third down play when they could have got that first down? Where are some of the mistakes? So I look at it more from that perspective, so it comes across that I'm being hypercritical. But I think that's how you got to be in life. You just got to look at it like, yeah, I stop and smell the roses basically here with you guys, but out in the real world, I'm all about how do I do the next good story? How do I get my guys to stay employed with me? How do I make sure that I don't get booted off the internet? How do I keep paying all the ladies that I keep DMing to not say that I'm DMing them? I'm kidding. I'm
this
kidding.
Guy.
I'm kidding.
Hold on.
I'm kidding.
Doc.
But
Doc's just selling himself out here.
no, I'm kidding. And the idea is, when the Lions do well, I'm very happy. It's good for business. It's good for motivation, and it's good for everybody involved. I love when the fans are happy, but me personally, when you run a site, like, you can't just be one-sided. Like we have that where, hey, the Lions did this well, the Lions did that well. But at the same token, I'm the one that focuses on, okay, how can they do better? Who can improve? Where's an improvement that could be made? That's just how I look at it. But Goff is just the right leader for this Detroit Lions football team right now. But at the same token, if you ask me, at this point, I've always said it, and I'm not hiding from it, I am skeptical that Goff, in the criticalest moment in the Super Bowl, mano a mano versus a Lamar, or mano a mano versus Patrick Mahomes, I need to see Jared Goff step in the ring with the king and do some things.
All right. Well, Doc, keep up the great work. We appreciate you so much. And as always, guys, appreciate you always tuning into these Wednesdays with Doc. You know what? It's been fun because we've done so many in the offseason, Doc. Now we get to cover some football with you. So it's great. Link will be in the description. Go read all the Doc stuff. Follow him on X as well, and continue to support the man like he supports us as well. But Doc, we love you. And we'll talk
you guys.
Love you, Doc.
next week.
Love this hour. I love this hour. And guys, please, if I was DMing people, they would rat me out in just a heartbeat. Look, I'm not Brad Pitt. I don't got that kind of money. People be like, look at this clown. I ain't DMing. But I will say this, if you want to laugh, I have not laughed this hard. I literally belly laughed. Deion Sanders on Sunday after the NFL games, he went on for 2 hours with Shannon Sharpe, and he literally was clowning on Shannon Sharpe about that video, like true friends would do. I was crying, laughing of like Shannon being like, all right, I got to take it. Deion's like, it's my turn to take shots at you, Shannon. And I had a couple clips on our Twitter page. I belly laughed. Deion is great for sports. I just thought that setting was a pure example of podcasts. I hope that people have started to embrace podcasts as just on the same level as everybody else. What these guys are doing is great. And if you want to laugh, look for Deion Sanders on Shannon Sharp and Shay Shay. It was funny. And
Hell of a duo.
literally Ocho Cinco on the nightclub nightcap with Shannon is must watch. Like if you're after a long day, the Pistons lose, Jeff, go watch Shay Shay. You'll feel better and you can go watch the next games.
Hey, Doc, that's my guy. I watch pretty much I try to catch every episode of Night. I just like watching Shannon Sharp, dude. He's a legend. And Ocho. Him and Prime together in Ocho.
Yes.
That they need to have, I don't need Prime's coaching, but at some point they got to have a show, all three.
Oh, and I got to and just for the audience, I am happily married with 2 kids. So basically, it's what they call it in the psychological world. In my expertise, I'm projecting my inner desires to be Don Juan because in the next life I'll be George Kittle, and I'll just be like, "Hey, what's up?" And the girl will be like, "Come on over," and I'll be like, "All right, let's watch some movies."
Yeah, you know what, Doc? We don't got.
Hey, what movie are you watching, Doc?
We know what you are. We know what you were, and you're still in your prime. But
right,
this guy was a dog. We know he was a dog. You don't need to explain yourself.
I hate to say it, but you got to watch a rom-com so that you can handle business. You got to put them in the mood.
Oh my God!
So the Notebook,
turn it on the Notebook.
Why Doc's came on our show is batting 100 right now.
I'm serious. What are you gonna do? You tell him I want to watch Rambo. I want to watch Club Shay Shay. You know what I mean? You got to listen. You guys like, okay, whatever you want to watch, babe, we'll watch it, and then you got to.
You don't finish it.
Yeah, exactly.
I get it, Doc.
Tiger's got Doc feeling some type of way. My God.
Yeah. I like this. Hey, bye week, Doc. Hey, I like this.
Different Doc that we're getting here.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks, guys.
Talk to you next week, Doc. Appreciate you so much.
Appreciate you, Doc.
And Doc continues to come on show, support, and he cooks every single time. As always, it's brought to you guys by BetUS. Man, we get unhinged Doc at sometimes, and I think the bye week Doc there's got to be different Docs. There's bye week Doc. There's Doc after a loss, like lost Doc. I don't know.
There's calm down Doc.
When he's challenged.
We get Doc after dark.
Doc after dark. Yep. After dark Doc. Yeah.
There's tequila Doc.
Yeah. Modelo Doc is not a different
The tequila Doc was one that I think was
Coors Light Doc, though. He went at Booner right away. Coors Light Doc.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That was calm down Doc.
Now, if we had real American Doc, he cut promos. Yeah, that's what he did when he was drinking Real American. So in Coors Light, he turned into a absolute demon. So I don't know if he needs no more Coors Light for Doc.
Cut him off.
Cut him off.
Yeah, there's and Oh No Lion says, oh, now there's DM Doc. I mean, there's
we've got to cut the sound clip. We've got to cut the sound clip of him saying that and then the laugh to follow.
What was he had like the laugh afterwards?
I think it was me. Like I didn't understand what he was saying. Then it hit me like, huh. Like I didn't process till it did.
What an absolute legend. Drop your questions in the chat here. So we'll
Mailbag, baby.
Yeah, we'll get to your questions. I look forward to it. Hey, great guest today. We had Ted Rath, John Maakaron.
Yeah. Oh,
big show. Stack show.
Great. Yeah, Ted he got me fired up. I mean, he can motivate. I mean,
I would like to have Ted on again, like down the line, like maybe like halfway through the season, reach out and get him on again to see how he thinks about the season, or even heading into the playoffs, like the mindset of that. I would love to have Ted back on. That was a good guest.
Yeah, if you guys missed it, you can rewind 8:15, about 8:13. He joined, gave some insight to Jared, Ben Johnson, ton of things there. It's funny too because whenever Doc joins, there's like a portion of the chat that has this vendetta against Doc every time, and I can see.
What does he say? Haters get me paid. That's what
and the Bills.
He loves them. He loves them.
Here he is. He's in the chat. The Doc, John Macaroon. I don't know what that says.
When I
no clue what that means.
He didn't get the thought out.
There we go.
Description DMs come out. Oh, jeez, yeah. But John's probably subscribed. John, he probably subscribed to a couple OnlyFans, huh? He's probably subscribed to a couple OnlyFans.
He doesn't need to. He doesn't need to.
Come on, Jeff. The man's got a wife and 2 kids. Come on.
He just went on our show. And said
after.
Yeah.
Like Jeff digging him a deeper grave.
Yeah, that door is already. He kicked that door open. Right? He kicked that door open.
And you can't. And even so, like, I'm sure Doc keeps the same energy, Boone. Like you said, you challenge the king. He's not just gonna sit there and be like, yeah. You know, firsthand, Boone. He's not taking no shit.
No, as he shouldn't. Shout out to Doc, man.
Hey, you know the other Doc we missed out on? MSU Doc. That's a man on a mission. The MSU Doc. That's a whole nother Doc. That's a Doc we haven't met. And I don't think we'll meet again. That's only 8. That's a tall tale. Hanging in the rafters, yeah. Mm-hmm. Steve says, with Houston turning into absolute shit and the ability to pay both Hutch and Crosby, is Trey Hendrickson inevitable? I love the question. Very, very straightforward, but I love it.
You guys know how I feel about Trey Hendrickson. I think he's going to be on the move. If Cincinnati loses this week, they play Baltimore. If Cincinnati loses on Sunday, they're going to probably start looking at potential opportunities to move on from guys. I would think you're 1-4. You're probably out of the race potentially. And a guy that's already requested a trade, you did want to pay him already. I would think Trey Hendrickson's someone who eventually will be on the trade market. Just by what we've seen in the offseason. Like, all of the signs point that way. It just depends if Brad is going to be willing to give up something. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts, fellas?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the Hutch thing, Crosby's, I think, impossible to get. I just don't see it. And then Trey Hendrickson, he wants an extension, but maybe he'll play on the 2-year deal he's under. I don't know.
And George asked
the idea of it, but who knows if Brad will fork up anything to get one of these guys. Like, we've kind of said it before the season, will probably be like a lower end guy, not one of these guys that you're going to have to pay a boatload to. But by all means, Max Crosby, Trey Hendrickson, even though I think Hendrickson got injured last week. But either way, I would welcome either of those guys with open arms, obviously.
I'm with you, brother. I don't know if it's inevitable as far as Trey Hendrickson. Like, that has to be the guy. But there has to be a different solution for what they're doing at the defensive end spot right now.
Michael Dunlap says, what grade do you give Terran Arnold in the first 4 weeks?
Give him C+.
I was going to say C+. Obviously, the penalties are probably the thing that's bringing that grade down, but you've seen some good things out of him, and the matchups that he has had through 4 weeks haven't been the easiest. So you tone down those penalties a little bit, and I'm sure that will come in time. I'll go C+ right now.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say C. I don't mind C+. He's in that C+ like range. I just think the penalties knock him. But in terms of being in coverage, he's been pretty good. Pretty good. But the penalties, though, it's after a week or two, it's like, okay. And then week 3, week 4, it's like, all right, at some point, got to have a game without these penalties. John,
sure.
What grade would you give, Bone? You didn't give a
probably
grade.
A C. I mean, I think it's across the board. I'm sure everyone. It's just those penalties go away. I mean, I think like outside of the penalties, he's been good. It's really just a handful of penalties. That's literally the only downfall of him right now. Which that's like, as a rookie, that's something that ends up getting fixed. Like he'll figure that out.
All right. John says, Mailbag, have any of you guys on the show slid into a DM? I think Booner for sure.
I would think all of us have it. If you haven't,
that's the bread and butter.
Well, yeah, I would say we're all. I mean, I'm single. I'm not going to speak for other people on the show, but like if you're single at some point, everyone has, right?
There's an evolution of it too. You start off with the straight text, but Boone, you even tried it. The voice memos and
you had me do it a while back.
It
didn't work
like a charm. It works like a charm. You're sliding in the DMs.
All they hear on the other side is Booner. They just hear me. Hey, that's Booner.
I just hit here.
Lion!
Jeff's probably waiting for that.
Yeah. Jared Goff, baby. Oh, jeez.
Aiden Hutchinson,
John,
player of the year.
Yeah,
he says, you gotta believe it. You gotta believe it.
I would, yeah.
Don't you worry.
John coming in and calling you out for your takeaways, Boone. Yeah, he came right away at you.
He did, but then I shut it down. Every single one of my spots was a takeaway. Like, he was like, "You're Jared Goff's a god." Like they were all takeaways. Everything I said was a takeaway, right? Kirby Joseph is an All-Pro safety.
You gave
That's
some
a takeaway.
takeaways. Yeah, I just thought about the
Takeaway.
box. Like,
He's ready. He did his
we should
homework.
change it to "Here's why I love the Detroit Lions."
He did his homework. He tried to shoot at the king, and he took a
love
shot. He took a shot at the king, and he missed. It's all right. It happens. We all miss once in a
Hey,
while.
there you go, Boone.
We all miss once in a while.
Oh, that's tough. Oh no, Doc's in the chat like that son of a bitch.
Doc's about to join the stream again. Doc doesn't like that.
Yeah, he just pops up out of nowhere.
All right. Let's see here. I'm trying to look for these other questions here. I know
It's right
people are
here.
talking them. Yeah, throw them up there. George, Mailbag, Hassan Reddick situation. What are your thoughts on to what will happen to him and the Jets? So I don't know how that works. I think the Eagles wanted him, but they can't trade back for him. It's not like it's in the rules.
I didn't know that.
So it's kind of interesting. I don't know. I think he eventually gets dealt. I don't think the Lions are interested because I don't know how much of a culture fit he is. Yeah, I think he's a player. Yes. Culture fit. No. And that's what Brad says. Everyone can't be Detroit Lions. Everyone can't be a Lion. I think that's probably Hassan Reddick. Even though he's good, like a player of that caliber, I'll take on the Lions. I just don't know if.
What about this question?
If it'll be Hassan Reddick. That guy up north, Mailbag, ALDS predictions from each of you. Don't say Tiger sweep. Is that for Booner or what do we do?
I would say this. No, I have a prediction. I think they first two games I think are on the road. I believe. I think they go 1-1, and they head back to Detroit for 2 games in Detroit, and they win 2 in Detroit. They're not losing in Detroit, so I think it would be Tigers in 4. Give me Tigers in 4.
I was gonna say Tigers in 4-2, but Boone, I'm gonna switch up.
I'm gonna go Tigers in 5.
Yes, Tigers in 5 They're gonna go back and win it in Cleveland.
I just don't want it to get to that bottom game or that last game.
You guys should have seen too. Obviously, I'm in Ohio, and I have group chats with my friends from Ohio, and I'd say 75% of them are Guardians fans, and the amount of the amount of money laid on the Astros today in that group chat was insane.
Damn.
So I can't wait to see if I shouldn't say if, when the Tigers beat the Guardians. I'll be a happy camper.
They lost money too. That's
by the way,
I don't know how they do it. Imagine being a Guardians and a Browns fan. How depressing is that? Disgusting.
Stuff out there. That's it's tough right now. Deshaun Watson experiment. Nah.
Kevin Stefanski, Coach of the Year. My ass. Wipe my ass with that award.
you don't do that. Yeah, that's
what Kevin O'Connell's doing in Minnesota right now. That's
Coach of the Year. Yeah. Yep.
Joe Flacco, Lucas.
Oh no, I can't.
Same thing he did in Cleveland.
Keep cooking.
Let's see. Derek says, Mailbag, what's the next Detroit Lions trick play we haven't seen? Use your imagination.
It's going to be an offensive lineman. We're going back to the big fella touchdown.
You know what I want to see? You know what I want to see bad? Have you ever seen those college plays where they give the ball to they put a defensive tackle at fullback and they hand the ball to him? Can we put
you know what we need?
Put Broderick out there. Give
you
Broderick the ball. Let him work.
You remember when the Chiefs used to trot out Dontari Poe at the 1 yard line?
Yeah.
At Alex, that's what they need. Put DJ Reader 5 yards behind and just let him just go. There's nobody tackling him.
I was gonna say Panay. I mean, I just don't want to get him hurt, so I was starting to think of
keep him up front. You keep him up front.
Yeah, you keep Panay blocking. Yeah.
You know who would actually be good? Not even a lot. Josh Pascal, because he's low to the ground. He's a little athletic.
There's a better one. Give it to. There's Aleem McNeil. Aleem McNeil was a running back in high school. We posted the highlights.
Let
Aleem give the rock to Aleem.
Like that.
That'd be so funny.
Anytime you're inside the 5, just let Aleem just plow through the offensive line or defensive line.
Yeah, Gio Manu.
With offensive line.
Gio Manu is a good one.
That would be like a Mack truck on a Honda Civic at the line of scrimmage. The linebacker that tried to stand a chance would just Fred Warner would be the only one that could probably make an impact play there. If not, it's just chops.
No, it's chop. I mean, it's like kids hanging onto your ankles and you're like, oh, you're pulling them with you. That'd be Gio which is pulling that like Fred Warner to the end zone. Just, hey, come on with me, Fred. We're going. We're scoring here. That's what's going on. Yeah, give one of these big fellas the rock. That's what we want to do. That's what we want to see. You know, yeah. Whenever I say fullback, I think they don't have. I always remember they gave up on Jason Kabinda. They don't have a fullback now. They just roll with tight ends at fullback.
Yeah, I mean, Kabinda, it's crazy. He's not on the team. He was like
One
a
of the-
state. Felt like
They were one of the only teams that used fullbacks until they got rid of them. But
now, like Rodrigo, I think what happened when Kabinda got hurt last year and they threw Rodrigo in there, they were like, "Oh, anyone could do this." So like,
yeah, it's kind of
like,
messed up actually.
yeah. And then they just never re-signed him. They were just like, "Rodrigo could do this. Like, we got people who can do it now. We're good."
Jeez. Well,
Yeah, and Hesse is there now. Hesse's in that spot too. Now,
yeah,
so.
he can do just fine. He can do just fine.
I mean,
hey, appreciate all you for tuning in. Appreciate the doc. Appreciate Ted as well for joining the show. Tomorrow we'll be back, of course, every weekday, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Continue to show your support and subscribe. I know we've been, subscribers have been going up. We're about halfway now to 9,700. So we're at 9,600.
oh,
Now we're almost there. So we're climbing. We're trying to get to 97, 98, 99,
yeah.
10K here. So get your merchandise as well, man. Official CT Sports.
Hey,
is in the chat. So get your merch.
hey, go Tigers, baby. Go Tigers.
Hey.
Hey.
Go the Tigers, baby.
There you go, Boone.
Keep this
All
thing rolling. Playoffs.
Good
Playoffs.
day to
Love
be
you
a
guys.
Detroit sports fan from the Crunch Time crew. We'll catch you guys tomorrow. See ya.
Peace.